IT. I put IT in.
I'm here.
Thank you, Linda.
Does anybody know if I can get to the addendum while we're on this?
Whatever his name is.
I can send you the link. I'm looking at it right now.
No, that's not the point. Can I, switch screens in?
You'll still be in while you're looking at these.
For those joining for the City of Rancho Cordova City Council meeting, we'll begin in just a few moments. The council and staff are getting situated. If you are an attendee, the microphone has been muted and you will not be able to speak at this time.
Stacy, my other question.
Councilmember Budge, can I call you?
Yes. Thank you. Hey, so tonight when they do the presentation for
Linda, we can also hear you.
well,
You can mute your line if you want.
like your beard. I think you look more, regal. Just let it grow out more. So it'd be all fully white beard.
All white beard.
Yeah. You know your dad had one.
He did for a while.
Just try it out. It'll freak out Kobe and your son. Be like, see, son, that's what you're gonna have. Beards are popular nowadays.
Yeah, the one I had before this, just like a week or whatever. I shaved everything to go too far.
Can you click on your little picture there?
So is this gonna be the camera for Zoom purposes?
Just touch the screen. Start the meeting.
That's this, or?
That's just the people, the last person that spoke will pop up right here on your main view. But they'll see you down there.
Cyrus, we also have SAC cable here?
Yes, we do.
Can I see anyone on the screen other than myself? Is that an option? Like regular Zoom? Oh, never mind, I think I figured it out. I don't see Stacy. Oh, there you are.
There's 42 people on the call.
Excellent. That's a Donald and Linda.
So council members in the room, there are attendees that you can't see. These are just panelists.
Okay.
People presenting.
And microphone is on here?
Microphone is
Here? For both? Okay. I'm hearing an echo from somewhere. You got it? Okay.
Frank, your audio off on your iPhone? Computer? Audio on?
Are we good? Okay. In that case, I'm going to call this meeting of the Rancho Cordova City Council to order and ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember McGarvey,
Here.
Councilmember Budge,
Here.
Councilmember Terry,
Here.
Vice Mayor Gatewood,
Here.
Mayor Sander.
Here. And Madam Clerk, if you would read the Metro Cable TV television announcement, please.
The meeting of the Rancho Cordova City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will air on Sunday, April 26th at 9 a.m. and Tuesday, April 28th at 6 p.m. A DVD copy is also available for checkout from any library branch. A copy can also be ordered from the city clerk's department, and a webcast of this meeting will also be available on the city's website within 48 hours of adjournment of this meeting.
All right, very good. We are going to now do the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. The moment of silence will be in honor of Auburn's Mayor Bill Kirby, who died in a plane accident, actually, small individual plane accident last week. Quite a loss for his city. Let's see, to lead the pledge, Stacy, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Sure.
I don't know if you've done that duty before.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you would just join me in a moment of silence in memory of Auburn Councilman and past Mayor Bill Kirby. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have no presentations on our agenda tonight. We do have a spot for public comment. Are we prepared to take public comment?
I didn't find any appointments about spot for public comments for tonight.
That
Just
would-
tell me if you'd like me to create it.
That would be my Siri Watch commenting on that. Apparently, she does not
What
believe,
time is your appointment?
apparently she believes we do not have any scheduled public comment, but Stacy, you actually get the last word here.
Thank you. We do have some public comment. We asked for public comment to come in a couple of different ways for this meeting. One, our meeting is still open to the public, so those who are interested in coming to our meeting can come to present in person. For those who are joining us virtually or who cannot attend, we have asked that the public comment be submitted in advance by email to the city clerk's department. That email address was shared on the agenda, and we have received several public comments with regards to some items on the agenda. But the one that I do have a speaker card for regular public comment is Tara Kolvenbach. Tara, you'll have 3 minutes.
Oh, good. Old-fashioned, in-person public comment. Thank you, Tara.
Hi, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council and City Manager. I'm Tara Kolvenbach. I live in Rancho Cordova. And what I wanted to bring up to the council today is that I know we are really blessed by having a lot of small businesses. And some of them have used unique ways to get around some of the restrictions, but there's a lot of them that are closed, and because they're considered non-essential businesses. But I don't know if you saw on social media where they had a waitress 6 feet away throwing a drink and a plate at someone that was at a booth. Well, I don't think that would work. She probably wouldn't get a tip. But I'm thinking that some of these small businesses could have very unique ways, like J.J. Pfister, in how they present their whole group of products to the public right now that could have some other ways of doing it, like, say, if they needed to cut hair, somehow come up with a barrier and still do like one person at a time. But that's just an example, and I'm not good at that stuff. But I know that a lot of our businesses are very innovative, and I was wondering if the council would be open to getting some of that from different businesses in our area and petitioning maybe the Board of Supervisors, I assume, to give them an exemption so that they could open early and stay in business. Because I'm really worried about all these businesses continuing to operate with being closed for so long, and we don't know when it's going to be lifted. And I think a lot of them would be responsible in how they would respond. If J.J. Pfister can do it, why can't they? You know what I'm saying? Can't they come up with a way to still maintain the guidelines, the CDC guidelines? So that was my concern, is if you guys were interested in sort of championing them in a way. So that's all I had to say. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tara. We have done some of that. You may have seen in our social media feeds and online. We have highlighted some businesses that have found ways to adapt. Rancho Cordova Inspires is one of the taglines. It's across, Pound Rancho Cordova Inspires. It has some of those stories that are pretty interesting.
Right, I know that wasn't my concern. I know that, you're highlighting them, but do they know that they could come to you and if they had an idea?
Yeah.
If they had a proactive idea that may be out of the ballpark that we wouldn't even think about that they could do.
Right.
And they might even not even think to come to you guys.
So
and
we have,
girls.
we have done a number of things trying to help out small business in particular in Rancho Cordova. And Micah is sitting right there, head of economic development for the city. So I think your suggestion's a good one. I suspect we're doing it at some level, but I'd be interested in having you share that with him in more detail, if you don't mind.
Okay, no problem.
Thank
Okay,
you, Tara.
Thank you.
I know, for example, with our loan program, we've got consultants on board helping people navigate, helping small business navigate through the different federal, state, and now local through us, programs that are available to help them. And that's pretty unique. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on that. Any other public comment?
No.
All right, very good. That will end our public comment for tonight, except when we get to individual items. So we're going to go on with council reports, and Mr. McGarvey, you are up first.
Oh, thank you. Just had a couple of things. As we are, like most, at home most of the time. I'm at home every day, and so is my wife, and so is our daughter. We have a 13-year-old grandson that I am teaching his things which he can't do at school anymore, so we're doing it at home. My wife, Terry, is a retired teacher, and she's working with the 10-year-old, and our daughter is working on our granddaughter, 4.5 years old, and she's learning about reading and other things like that. So it's quite a different kind of an experience to have the kids not going to school, but you're teaching there at home. I know there are many, many people doing that. I know there are also quite a few people in these businesses that you were talking about who are really wondering how are they going to teach kids and still be at work and. So there are so many things that are being questioned today. So hopefully that things can come up soon, and I'm not sure exactly. I know my brother, his brother, his wife was in the hospital with the coronavirus, but she's home now. So I'm hoping we can hear more on the news, for instance, about people who are going home, who are healthy now, rather than focusing on nothing like how many people have died, rather, you know. And there was one thing today in the Sacramento Business Journal that I thought was really interesting. I'll just read the first part. It says, U.S. oil price below zero for the first time in history. The U.S. oil prices crashed into negative territory for the first time in history as the evaporation of demand caused by the coronavirus pandemic has left a world awash with oil and not enough storage capacity. And it just goes on along that line. But it's interesting. The settlement price on Monday was negative 37.63. Now I'm waiting for the gas to go down too. So they'll be paying me while I get their oil too, their gas, you know, so that's what I'm looking for. Thank you, that's what I've got.
Free gasoline. All right, Linda, I think you're up.
Super. Nope, I am.
We can hear you.
So, great. Like Bob, our family is all involved in distance learning. We've got one family has 4 distance learners and 2 teachers who are all fighting over the same couple of computers. And the other family has 2 kids who are trying to do distance learning while both their parents are working from home. So I think we're all experiencing the same issues and the same challenges. The only thing interesting, and Bob is absolutely right. Tom Sullivan talked about the oil all this afternoon. The only thing I found that's interesting, in terms of electric vehicles, SMUD is actually offering a $599 incentive so that you can charge free for 2 years. And that is absolutely a good deal. I figured it out based on our electric vehicle credit each month, and a $599 incentive is a significant savings. So if anybody has the audacity to get out and buy an automobile at this point in time and has thought about electric, then SMUD is making it easier for them, and they really ought to think about that. So that's all I've got to contribute.
All right, very good. Next up, Mr. Terry.
Hey, okay, I'll keep it fairly brief. Echo what everyone else is talking about. Luckily, Garrett and I married well, so we married teachers. So,
And Bob.
most of the education administration is being done by my wife. I know that. We did have a 2x2 with Sac City Unified last week. It was pretty eye-opening. You know, they were really actually getting up to speed a little faster than Elk Grove Unified did, which is kind of interesting considering Elk Grove was the first school district in the region, maybe in the state, to close, and they weren't really online until today. So that was about 6 weeks out. They didn't get all of the computers that they had ordered, but they did explain that, you know, to do distance learning, that not every student needs a laptop. You can use iPads, you can use phones, you can actually, you know, smartphones or just the regular telephone to interact with your teachers and your educators and stuff. So I was actually really impressed with the speed in which that they went, also considering that some of their bargaining units really weren't working with them as far as coming up with a policy around distance learning. The following day we had a call with Elk Grove Unified. Again, got an update as to where they are. They actually distributed, I want to say, Garrett, you can correct me, 28,000 computers within their school district, obviously a much larger school district than our other two school districts in the city. But they seem to be up and running. There's a meal program at all of our schools. Well, I'm sorry, there's at least in each of the districts, there's a place to pick up meals. It's McGarvey this week, and then I want to say it was Abraham Lincoln in the Lincoln Village, Rosemont area. We had an emergency meeting for the Sacramento Air Quality Management District, really just to declare an emergency in case there was additional federal funds or FEMA funds that might come along. One fascinating thing, while we are declaring kind of a fiscal emergency for the air district, the air has never been cleaner. The fact that everyone's staying home, not driving, and not doing anything has actually done wonders for the air quality. So if there is a silver lining to all of this, it's that you can go outside and breathe deep, just make sure you're 6 feet away from everybody else. There was a call today, I don't know if anybody else was on it, for the National League of Cities, gave an update as far as the stimulus 2 or 3 or whatever number we're on today. And the Democrats are still really pushing hard, and they've gotten a few Republican co-signers to do a direct funding to local governments and state governments and health facilities in this next round. The Senate does not want to include that language, but they just want to renew the PPP program and get it back open and have banks approve more loans. So that's really where the sticking point is. The National League of Cities is asking all of us to call our congressman. Luckily, we know our congressman is supportive of the language, but you know, we need to get some of the other ones that have been holdouts. And then finally, this weekend, I went on a quest to get some more hand sanitizer from our local distributors at J.J. Pfister, and they were out. And they said that the day that they had hand sanitizer, they sold more booze than I think they had ever done in a day. And they were limiting, by the time I got there, they were limiting how many bottles you could buy of their stuff. That's how busy some of these folks are getting. But he did say that by this weekend they will have more, and they're going to be producing 8,000 gallons of hand sanitizer a week now. So hopefully Rancho Cordova will not run out of hand sanitizer. That's all for me.
All right, very good. Garrett?
Besides the meetings, so Donald, we did meet with them. Elk Grove is doing an amazing amount of iPads to all the kids that are in need. And they were still looking for another, I think they placed an order, Donald, correct me, another 25,000 or something like that, number of iPads they were trying to get down for Elk Grove Unified. And then due to the talk that Donald and
I don't recall a number that big for Elk Grove. Sac City was definitely short, like 10,000.
Okay. So everyone's trying right now to basically get in the equipment to basically to catch up and get all the students. So it's nice to hear that they're, even in our area, they're basically reaching out and that they're putting the food, after Don and I had a long talk with them about putting a food stop over in McGarvey or at the Sunrise Elementary, because before we would have to drive, and our families would have to drive all the way into Deep Elk Grove to be able to get food. So that was great, and they have been really receptive, and we are meeting with them on probably a monthly basis now, which hasn't happened before, and they're good because we're all trying to find ways to help out our kids. Had a meeting with STA, and since we're going on a vote with that, I'll talk about that then. And then we met with Sacramento County and talked about everything they're trying to do in the county to try to whether get the homeless people, help with them to get them off the streets and put them into a temporary housing, and then surround them with services, to what we can do to basically keep businesses alive or do what we can to sustain them. That's about it.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Gatewood. I will also try to abbreviate my report. I have had, I think I heard a colleague of mine say on one of these conference calls that they were having more meetings now than they did pre-coronavirus. And I think that very well may be true because of the ease of having a Zoom meeting. People are calling them all the time, and in addition, there's an awful lot of briefings and extra things that are being thrown in as we all try to deal with this situation. So I've been on calls with Office of Emergency Services, League of California Cities, National League of Cities, U.S. Conference of Mayors, the White House, and Johns Hopkins University and their special program for international health, all in the past couple of weeks. And that's probably not everything. That was just what I sketched down here off the top of my head. In addition, we've added a weekly call that Cyrus and I do with our local schools, parks, travel and tourism, Cordova Community Council, and Chamber of Commerce to try to figure out in the Rancho Cordova level what we can coordinate, what each agency's worried about, where others have challenges, we may have abilities, and just to bounce good ideas off of each other. And in that space, we've heard primarily from some challenges in parks in terms of keeping people from doing recreation. There was a soccer team perhaps showing up and having regularly Wednesday events at one of the soccer fields. So I think that's been taken care of. Travel and tourism reports local hotel stays are down about, was it 94%? Something like that, some number like that, pretty amazing. And the Cordova Community Council probably had one of the most significant reports, and that was just talking about the impact this is having on nonprofits, where your events have been canceled, the ability of your volunteers to get together and do things have been canceled. If it's a sport league, which is a big deal to us here in Rancho Cordova, seasons are canceled. How do you hold those organizations together under these circumstances? And so you see some trying to operate online, like our Symphony de Oro, which is the Rancho Cordova Philharmonic or Symphony Orchestra, basically, and they're doing events online that allow people to sort of log in by Zoom again and listen to a lecture, hear some music, things like that. So they're making it a little interactive in this time. But for many, many of these nonprofits, it's a big challenge. And so we urged Shelley and the Cordova Community Council, and I, full disclosure, I serve on their board, to assist their membership with applying for whatever grants were possible from the federal government, because as we understand it, nonprofit organizations can do so as well as other levels of business. So that's the weekly call we've been having. We also were a customer, actually my wife's business was a customer of J.J. Pfister, and was there on the day that they were sold out, but got put on the list and just got the notice that more hand sanitizers available. In the meantime, she went to Rancho Cordova's other distillery, Gold River, it's the Gold River Distillery, I think, and purchased some very fine gin, but also some hand sanitizer from them, as it turns out. So our distilleries in Rancho Cordova, and I think we've got more than anybody else, are doing well under the circumstances, I hope. I certainly appreciate how they're coping with this situation.
Is the gin good for hands too?
Apparently the alcohol level is not quite high enough, but I will do, right. I'll do a study on that and get back to you in depth. That's funny. And it is not true, by the way, that if you drink alcohol, it impedes the virus. Not true. It's a rumor all over the internet.
I'd like to.
Yeah, drink more alcohol, you'll be, no, not true. All right, back to my report here. Education is interesting. We have my 17-year-old foster son in our house is at Cordova High, long-distance learning at this point, and my 15-year-old son is at Jesuit High, long-distance learning at this point, and how those two schools are dealing with it is pretty fascinating, as well as hearing from other parents, in those schools and in elementary schools about what their interactions are like with the school district or private schools or other schools in our jurisdiction. It's a pretty interesting time. I have attended meetings remotely. At SACOG, we had a board meeting last week. National League of Cities has had some transportation and infrastructure committee meetings. I serve on that policy committee. And I've been in the media, KFPK, KCRA, and a number of videos, I think, in the past 2 weeks since we met. And finally, I hope all of us have had an experience I've had this past week, which was, and we all know people probably at this point, at least by name or by remote relationship, who have had the virus and maybe had a bad time with it. One of our neighbors in Rancho Cordova resident, longtime resident, was on a ventilator for about 12 days. And the odds of returning at that point are not so great, generally. They're improving as our medical care gets better at understanding how to deal with this virus. But still, that is not very good odds. And he came home last, almost a week ago now. Came home, he's gonna be fine. And what his family did to celebrate was really cool. So they waited a few days until he was home, he was comfortable, and they had a party that was a drive-by party. So he sort of parked himself at the end of a driveway, and his friends were instructed to show up in your car at 4 o'clock, drive by, and we can yell at each other through the window and wave at each other, and you can welcome them home. And dozens of cars showed up for this, far more than they were expecting, probably because everyone just wanted an excuse to get out and do something. But it was a really wholesome, awesome moment. I just walked down the street and, waved from a good distance, welcome home. And to see that level of interaction and that sort of expression of hope, even in a tough time, it was pretty neat. Okay, that is my report. City Manager.
Hey, really quick one thing, I forgot. I just want to thank Cyrus for being involved in the Cordova Religious Council and really getting out there and what they did to help out the overall community. And they did a food drive fooding and clothes drive for the Mather Veteran Village, because some of those people are struggling right now, and they've been collecting it and kind of getting the different churches together to help out. And wherever the churches as a group are going, they kind of go and help and basically put money towards and as a group kind of show up. So they've really been, the religious community in Rancho has really been stepping up lately to help out. So let me not forget that group.
The Faith Council and
Yes.
the Rancho Cordova Food Bank.
Yes.
Yeah,
And the
Cordova Food
backpack,
Bank.
what was the backpack one?
Blessings in the
Blessings in the backpack.
Those organizations, are doing an outstanding job. Very, very proud of them.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you all have mentioned, obviously, it's been very, very busy with the number of Zoom meetings and calls, conference calls, and we have been participating in quite a few of these webinars or sessions at the federal, state, local, county. So a lot going on, and we're keeping track of everything that's happening. I just wanted to give you a couple of updates related to the work that we have been doing to help the business community. Obviously, they have been impacted greatly by this crisis, and we have taken a very organized, coordinated, and systematic response to help them. We obviously don't have the resources to be giving out funding or the money, but the work that we have done is been to do our best to connect them to the services that are available at different levels. And to that end, we entered into 2 private contracts with 2 experts in the field who can help the businesses, especially small businesses, to do a level of hand-holding that many other communities have not been able to do. And we've received very positive feedback in the work we do. We've also created a very robust toolkit for not only our residents, but also our businesses, especially small businesses. It is on the city's website. If you go to the COVID-19 heading, you will see much of the information that I'm talking about available on our website, including a resource toolkit that we have put together for our small businesses and help them navigate during this difficult time, accessing federal and state resources. So if you haven't tried it, if you haven't tested it, please take a look and also refer anybody who's looking for help or assistance. I'm also pleased to announce that we started a program to provide free delivery of groceries to our residents. The idea was that if a resident orders groceries from a supermarket, sometimes the cost of delivery could be a hindrance, and we, the city, are picking up that cost, and we had Rayleigh's initially to sign up for the program, and I'm pleased to say that we have expanded this program, and Safeway is now participating in it. So people, our residents, can take advantage of it. And last update I wanted to give you was I did provide some information at the last meeting related to the use of Comfort Inn that the county has selected for as one of the homeless, a facility to house homeless who are in need of some assistance, especially the at-risk homeless individuals who may need some assistance during this crisis. The facility is being operated by Goodwill and the County of Sacramento. And to date, we know that they have reported to us that they have about 50 people occupying 39 rooms in that hotel. So just wanted to give you an update. We have also received assurances from the county that, and Goodwill, that most of the occupants that they have brought in have very good prospects of receiving long-term housing and assistance, and they have assured us that not only these folks would not be put back in our community, they would be taken to a place where they have shelter and the place where they came from. So we have received that assurance. And as Councilmember Gatewood also mentioned, we have been very involved, or some of our staff members have been involved in helping the faith community, nonprofits, other service organizations in the community, and a great deal of good work is happening. I'm very pleased to see how members of our community, members of our nonprofit organizations, service organizations, stepping up during this time, and we have a lot to be proud of. And I wanted to also give a shout out to staff, the city staff, who have been working really, really hard during this crisis. We have been very available. We have been very visible in the community. We're trying to provide information to be a resource for our community, and we will constantly point out to the fact that we are open for business. This is, we're processing permits, we're processing business licenses, planning applications, and we're certainly seeing that we're doing our share to do this in a safe manner, but also keep our local economy going. So thank you, that's my report.
Well, I would certainly second that motion. Staff is doing a great job. We are being innovative, cutting edge, and just performing very well for our citizens and our clients. And all of our partners out there. Okay, if there's nothing else under reports, we're going to move on to consent calendar items. Consent calendar items consist of matters deemed routine and non-controversial by staff. Unless a member of this council wishes to pull an item for individual consideration, all items will be approved by one motion. Are there any items a council member wishes to pull? Seeing none,
I'll move approval of.
A motion on items 9.1 through 9.3.
Mayor Sander, I think Councilmember Budge is trying to say something.
Yes, I said,
She is.
seeing none.
You were silent.
I'll move approval of 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3.
Okay, motion made by Budge. Is there a second?
Second.
Bob has it, he's faster.
Second by McGarvey. Roll call, please.
Councilmember McGarvey,
Aye.
Councilmember Budge,
Yes.
Councilmember Terry,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gatewood,
Yes.
Mayor Sander.
Aye.
Thank you.
We are moving on to consent public hearing items. Consent public hearing items consist of matters deemed routine and non-controversial by staff. Unless a member of the council wishes to pull an item for individual consideration, all items will be approved by one motion. I'm going to open the public hearing. Do we have any speaker cards turned in on any of these items?
No, we do not.
And these are items 10.1 through 10.5. Okay, no speaker cards turned in, no public comment. I'm going to close the public hearing. Are there any items of 10.1 to 10.5 the council wishes to pull?
Yes,
Seeing
please.
none, I'm open to a motion. Oh,
David,
yes.
I'm sorry. My little hand on the screen disappeared, so I can't wave my hand.
Okay.
10.2, please.
You'd like to hear 10.2? Okay, I will entertain a motion for 10.1, 3, 4, and 5.
So moved.
Motion by Budge, is there a second? Second by McGarvey. Roll call, please.
Councilmember McGarvey?
Aye.
Councilmember Budge?
Yes.
Councilmember Terry?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gatewood?
Yes.
Mayor Sander?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, 10.2. Linda, do you have a specific question, or would you like a staff report of some kind?
No, I do. I don't think we need a staff report. So I have two concerns. Number one, we've talked about this before. Whenever we are asked to adjust the standard yard space to shrink a yard down, it always seems like somebody is trying to, for probably very noble reasons, like, making a profit, is trying to squeeze too many houses into one specific area. So that would be a concern. But what I really object to, I'm sorry, guys, every house, and I think Jeff Demure is a wonderful architect, and every house in this neighborhood is dark gray. And that just doesn't seem like a good idea. I did notify the architect.
Okay. Do we have a representative available from the applicant? We believe we might have someone.
With JDA Architect. Hello?
Hello? Yes, who do you represent?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Who do you represent?
Dina Ellis. Yeah. Dina Ellis with
very
Crescent
good.
Homes. Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm so pleased to see all of you on the screen and to know everybody's super healthy. So it pleases me so much. So I'm happy. I also have Stephen with JDA, who is actually our project architect, also on the line. And a couple of things. I wanted to address Councilmember Budge's comment on the adjusting the yard space. That's consistent with what we did with Village 1 and Village 2. And the reason being is that we're not getting any more houses on the tentative map that was approved in 2002 or 2003. There's 81 lots. But really for us, we don't like stagnant where all of the houses are all placed exactly the same on the project lot. So we like to deviate so there's an ebb and a flow. Some houses are forward and some houses are recessed. And we think that's been really successful for us. It's actually more expensive, but we actually think it's much more visually interesting than what most production developers do or home builders do, where they place all of the homes within a standard setback. And so that's why we had asked for that. And on the gray color, Councilmember Budge, I personally love the colors. I think part of that, I don't know if you got the actual chips. Stephen and I were looking at the chips earlier. It looks to us like they're more of a brown gray than a true gray. There are some gray in the homes, but we think that they're still light and bright. I don't know if there's another color that you're looking for, but there's quite a bit of color relief here. Stephen, I don't know if you're on the line or if you can hear this commentary. Perhaps you can't. And so that's really why. And the other thing is, too, from the gray perspective, these are the largest lots we actually have in the totality of the Sunridge Lot J project. Is we wanted these homes to be a little bit more refined and elegant, and we think that we're kind of striking that both with the balance of the home types and the colors. So I'm personally not a huge tan fan, so Councilmember Budge, I completely understand the editorial comment, about gray. You know, we like it, and hopefully that's something we can all talk through now.
Okay, so I appreciate the point about the varying the setbacks. That makes a lot of sense. I understand that. Number one, I personally do not think, and I hate to criticize colors, but I do not think that brown, dark brown or gray makes a house elegant in the slightest. My other concern is that in Stone Creek, where when the houses were painted dark brown, that was the first paint to deteriorate in the sunshine and developed some very odd streaking, and it was all Kelly Moore paint, so it was perfectly great quality paint, but it didn't last but 2 or 3 years, and I'm concerned about the long-term appearance.
You know, I can hear that. I mean, we probably have, if not the best, one of the very best warranty claims departments. You know, meaning the low number of claims historically in comparison to other builders. You know, dark colors can do that. It all comes down to application and kind of the craftsmanship of how they're applied. The same thing holds true with bold colors, not just with dark colors. So if you're using a penetrating red or something like that, it all really comes down to the application. And so, you know, it's important to us. We've been building homes. We're a private developer. And so this aesthetic, we think, will do very, very well. I would tell you, I think that JDA is an incredible architect, one of our favorites to work with. We have a lot of trust in them, and we developed these plans over the course of about a year. And for Village 1 and Village 2 in Lot J, if we don't have the number one, we definitely have the number 2, but I almost think the number 1 amount of traffic and sales. And so even those homes, which have very penetrating color, I think initially when they came through design review 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, there was kind of a questioning because you have to be risk positive to lean into those colors and some of that fabrication. And we have had so much overwhelming success on doing things that are a little bit different than what everybody else is doing, that, you know, I can understand and appreciate the editorial that you don't love gray. Some of these grays may not be, I wish you had the chips in front of you. I think it would help because by the time you do generation quality after generation quality for either putting them up on the internet or through making photocopies, the gray is probably important to us. You know, I understand that. You know, like I said, I don't really love tan, but there, you know, so I would just close with that we think that these colors will do really, really well, and that they'll live, you know, long past their, you know, a 2 or 3 or 4 year period.
Well, and I certainly agree with the observation that you have the same problem with bold colors because it's my impression that Beazer has had to, or at least the Homeowners Association in Cat Village has had to repaint the townhouses twice now. And it was all the colors that deteriorated. The only one that didn't do so bad was the mustard, but definitely the brick red and the slate blue and the kind of mossy green all developed white streaks. So like I said, you know, that's a project that's 10 years old, and I think they've already been repainted twice. So you're right about the color observation. I just wanted to express my concern.
No, and I appreciate it. You know, I think that if anyone's been out to Village 1 and Village 2, we literally have one home that is that has almost a highlighter yellow. It's a pretty memorable house. That house has been so well received that I appreciate that you don't love it, but kind of staying with us perhaps for the risks, to stay with the risks with us, to do something different. Because part of what we're seeing, both in the traffic that we're getting there and the sales that we've been getting, is literally people are just so thirsty for something different. And so it was fairly bold to do some of the things we did in Village 1 and Village 2. And it could be, Linda, even on Village 3, we think that the application and the craftsmanship will be so good that it's something we'll be proud of. But the thing that we generally as a company shy away from is doing this. I've been with Cressley for 17 years. We don't replicate the same plan over and over again. In JDA, we tell you that we custom build and design each village, and we think we get a response from the public that way because the design is totally fresh. It's not something that was pulled off of a wall in Southern California.
We appreciate that. That's the quality we would expect from the JDA office. You're absolutely right.
So Dan, I can't tell you
I think that oh, go ahead.
when I looked at the elevations in the staff report, I tried to pull up the design book here at the dais, but I can't. I think that file might be too big or something. I can't get it. But
huge, David. Yeah, it's 425 pages or something.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it either.
But when I pull up the elevations, when I looked at these earlier today, I actually thought, boy, they're doing something really bold with the paint scheme. It's actually that you're showing shadow. Because I was seeing all these horizontal lines in these buildings. It's very interesting treatment to add horizontal block paint like that, but you actually have shadowing effects on the architecture.
Right.
But it's nice. I appreciate that it is a different look than you're going to find elsewhere, and I think that level of diversity in architecture is certainly a good thing.
Yeah.
Linda, does that satisfy your concern? Is there anything else you want here?
No, that's fine, David. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments on 10.2?
Thank you for the editorial comments. They're good.
Hey, David, I would just, a couple of things that.
Yes, Donald.
I don't disagree with anything that Linda that you said, but a couple of things to keep in mind. One, my last job before working for a bank was in 1998, working for Kelly Moore. The technology for paint has changed a lot since then. And so that's just one editorial comment. The other thing is if you just look at my street, and my home was built in, I want to say, 2005. Garrett probably knows better than I do. But there's one house that was painted brown on that street, and it's the only one that doesn't need a paint job. So
That's my house.
I don't know.
Thanks,
I'm not
Donald.
gonna say who.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. I would say who lives in that house, but it doesn't need a paint job. Mine does, and it was some sort of off-white pastel that just looks like white now. So in my observation, the darker homes tend to not need a paint job as soon as the really light ones that just lose all color. But then again, we're not painting houses in pastel colors anymore, which thank God we're not doing that.
Yeah, that was my concern. At least it's not peach and sage green and aqua blue.
Right, because those you're going to need to paint in like 10 years because there's going to be no color left. At least the dark ones, it's going to be a lighter shade of brown, but it's still brown, and it looks like it still has color.
Okay, so this is item 10.2. If there's no other comments on this topic, I'm open for a motion.
Make a motion, we go ahead and do the approval on 10.2.
Okay, motion made by McGarvey,
Second.
second by Garrett. Roll call, please.
Councilmember McGarvey?
Aye.
Councilmember Budge?
Yes.
Councilmember Terry?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gatewood?
Yep.
Mayor Sander?
Aye.
Thank you.
That brings us to public hearing items. Item number 11.1. If the clerk would announce that subject, please.
California North State University Dormitory Conditional Use Permit and Major Design Review, project number DD9919.
Okay, is there a staff report? Darcy, you're going to join us from there today. Very good.
I am. Good evening. I'm going to pull up the presentation, and I'll make it quick this evening. Before you this evening is the California North State Dormitory Project. Before we begin this evening, I just want to state that tonight will be for informational purposes. The applicant has requested that this item be continued to the May 4th City Council meeting. They would like to spend some additional time looking at their site plan and the potential to preserve some additional trees along Prospect Park Drive and on the site. So tonight we'll open the public hearing. I'll give you some information. You can ask some questions. There's representatives on the phone that can help. And then we would ask that we continue it to May 4th. So the requested entitlements this evening are conditional use permit and a major design review for a new dormitory project for California North State University. Project description is there are 2 proposed 5-story buildings. You can see on the screen here, Building A, 50,000 square feet is 190 dorms. Building B at 53,900 square feet is 210 dorms. There's a 2-story cafeteria building, so the bottom floor would be all of the cafeteria services, and a top floor would be 16 additional dorm rooms. They're also providing a courtyard area that's landscaped. It has open space and various seating areas. On the screen before you is just an overhead aerial. The existing site is located adjacent to the current university. It is a parking lot facility that has trees in it. It's pretty underutilized at this point, which is why they've selected this location for this potential dorm project. Surrounding zoning, the site itself is zoned OPMU, and you can see surrounding that it's very similar zones and uses, so OIMU, so we're looking at a lot of office uses in this general area. In terms of the site plan, there are 2 new existing driveways off of Prospect Park Drive. There's also an existing driveway to the west that would be shared with the existing university. And there are the 2 dorm buildings. One lines Prospect Park Drive, the other one aligns the southern boundary. And then there's the cafeteria building, and in the center there we have that open space courtyard area. There's also access all the way around the buildings. So for purposes of fire life safety, this is a 5-story building, so they do have different standards that they need in order to be able to bring their apparatus adjacent to those buildings in the event that they need to fight a fire or get people out. So the site plan reflects all of those requirements in order to provide adequate fire life and safety. The proposed dormitory buildings themselves is unique to Rancho Cordova. These are modular buildings, so they will be manufactured off-site, brought onto the site, and assembled together, kind of like Legos, if you can imagine. And then what they end up doing is putting on the facade of the building is constructed on the site. In terms of the architecture, it's pretty unique and different to this area. It is a little modern. It has varying roof types. It has varying parapets and canopies. They use different colors to be able to break up the varying walls. They're utilizing stucco and aluminum panels in order to provide some relief, but these are rather significant buildings for the area. They wouldn't be the largest in our office park area, but for this immediate area, they would be the largest buildings that you would see. In terms of the cafeteria building, it is a little bit different architectural style as well. Colors match. The materials are the same. It's just a little bit different in terms of the style that they're proposing. This is just another elevation of that. In terms of the development standards, this site does meet all of the development standards, whether it's on the site itself or with adjacent parking requirements or parking agreements with the university. So they are well parked. They exceed our landscape requirements. They meet all of our lighting standards. We do provide standard conditions of approval to ensure that they do meet these development standards within the code. In terms of tree preservation, this is currently what we're looking at in terms of tree preservation. Again, they're looking to continue this item to explore the possibility of preserving some additional trees on site. So if the project were approved today, they would be looking at a mitigation of a 1-to-1 ratio or paying an in lieu fee of $165 an inch. So currently on the site, they're proposing to remove 49 protected trees anywhere from 12 to 45 inches. So that's about 1,013 inches of tree removal that they'd have to mitigate for either replanting on site or paying an in lieu fee. That number, it's anticipated, will drop with some revisions to the site plan. So staff's recommendation tonight is to consider the item or the information presented to you, take any public comment, ask any questions you might have, and then continue this project to May 4th to allow the applicant to explore some additional on-site tree preservation. I can answer any questions you might have, and then again, there are a few representatives on the line that can also address questions.
So is this this is a public hearing item? We should open the public hearing, take some comment?
Yes.
We're not just immediately continuing.
Yes.
Very good. I'm going to open the public hearing. Are there any speaker cards for this item?
We have no speaker cards for this item, and no speaker cards or public comment was submitted in advance.
Do we have an applicant online who'd like to comment? Okay, hearing none. Are there any council comments or questions on this item? It's being continued, so we will have future time to discuss.
I have a comment, David.
Okay, Linda?
Okay, so I am extremely pleased to have talked to the applicant today and find that they were equally concerned about the number of trees that were originally proposed for removal. As I counted them based on their numbers, they were going to save only 17 out of 97 on-site trees. And that was a significant number. So if nobody else has a comment, then I would be happy to move that we continue this item to the 4th of May.
I'll just comment that I think this is a great project for Rancho Cordova. I'm really excited by it. This is one of the future outcomes for a business park like ours. We are still a very key part of the region's economy, but if you look at how these buildings were developed in the 70s and 80s and even 90s with very large footprints for parking, this is a great way to sort of densify, remodel, enhance, bring life to this business park that enhances the quality of life for all of us, really, by supporting businesses in that area and bringing more residents to Rancho Cordova. So I'm really excited by that. So I have a motion. Any other comments?
No, I'm just saying this is the second university we've seen is adding a dormitory. Because they had extra space there on the parking, so they're using the dormitories on that also, on Prospect Park Drive, not far from here. So I'm very glad to see that too, because we have so many spaces that are just never used. And so why not use them like they're doing right now? I like the idea.
All right, any other comments?
Mayor Sander, Brian Holloway, who is part of this project, would like to say something.
Oh, Brian, I see you right here. Welcome to our meeting.
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor Sander, members of the council. Brian Holloway, Holloway Land Company, representing California North State University Dormitory. I have Dr. Chung, who's the president of the university, and also on the line, and also Cindy Zen, who is the project manager. So we're all here to answer any questions. I would like to just take a moment and thank you for getting this project up to the council tonight. We really appreciate that. We apologize for the confusion over the trees, but hopefully we can come back with a much better project. But I especially wanted to thank your staff for not only moving us through the planning process very quickly, but also getting us to your council and giving us good advice and counsel in terms of getting this project to be the kind of project you want to see. We are supportive of the staff report, but we did not like the landscape plan and especially the massive tree removal plan. So what our plan is over the next couple weeks is to meet with the fire marshal, walk the site, and make sure that none of the existing trees need to be removed or need to be trimmed, and if they do, identify those, and then come back in order. And we would do that with the fire department just to make sure that their equipment can access the site should there be an emergency. So that's the plan. We can then have that walkabout with them as soon as possible, modify the landscape plan and the tree removal plan, and hopefully be back in front of you on May 4th with a much better, greener landscape plan. We apologize for the confusion, but we think we're going to bring you a better product on May 4th.
All right.
Any
very
questions
good.
for any of us? Dr. Puckett on the call as well. Any questions for us?
Any questions? All right, I think we're good.
Thank you. It's a
With
pleasure
that,
seeing you all again.
Good to see you.
Brian.
With that, I'm closing the
Brian.
public hearing. We have a motion. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Budge,
Yes.
Councilmember Terry,
Aye.
Councilmember McGarvey,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Gatewood,
Yes.
Mayor Sander.
Aye.
Thank you.
Very good. That was item 11.1. We're moving on to item 11.2. If the clerk could read that item,
Can we,
please.
David,
Yes,
David?
Linda.
Can we ask when they might plan to go to construction?
They would like
Are they
to have
gone?
this facility available in September, which I guess is remarkably possible through the wonders of modular construction. Amazing. Okay, well, we will work with them on that. Item 11.2.
11.2, a resolution to approve a conditional use permit for Turning Point Community Programs Residential Care Facility.
All right, is there a staff report on this item?
Yes, this is June Cowles in the Planning Department.
Hi, June.
Hi, I'm just waiting. Good evening, Council and Mayor Sander. You guys look great on video. So I'm going to wait for my power presentation. It's going to come up.
It's going to come up in just a moment.
Turning Point Community Programs. Okay.
So far, you look like a phone. I don't know. It's
Attempting to pull it up, having a couple of technical difficulties.
We're almost there.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So tonight, the Turning Point Community Programs. Let me get to the next slide. So the project request, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for a short-term mental health program residential care facility use. This is located at 3440 Viking Drive. The proposed program provides services to treat adults experiencing a mental health crisis who require a 24-hour support. So the location, it's east of Bradshaw Road and north of Lincoln Village Drive. So here's a picture of the existing street view. Currently, the site it is owned by Turning Point Community Programs, and they were using it in the past as an office space. So the Turning Point Community Program is for a 15-bed facility, is short-term stay up to 30 days, 24-hour care, so staff will be on site 7 days a week, 24 hours. Approximately 70% of that building will be converted to the residential facility. That includes the bedrooms, kitchen, and therapy rooms, and then the remaining area will be office space. So on this side, you can see the red area will be the residential area, and then the blue is office space. The zoning is medium density residential, does allow residential care with a conditional use permit. And then this chart shows the existing uses surrounding the area. So back up to the zoning, residential to the north and to the east. There's an apartment complex right on the corner, and then medium density residential zoning to the south, but that's actually retail offices, and actually there's retail space on the corner on the OPMU zoning is mostly office space. So the applicant is a neighborhood, they provided a neighborhood meeting on February 24th at the Neil Orchard Senior Center. So Turning Point Community Programs is an organization that has provided a path to mental health since 1976. And they currently operate over 40 programs in several Northern California communities. So these next slides show their current locations in Sacramento County, Meadowview, Rio Linda, and then one in Oak Park. The neighborhood meeting summary, they introduced themselves, the staff, and description of the Turning Point community programs. Sacramento County staff was also at the meeting, and they stated the funding, strict rules, reviews, and competitive atmosphere for selecting a crisis center recipient. So the TPCP staff explained the staffing credentials and the client selections. They do an in-person interview, and they also look for clients that are willingness and dedication of the potential client to enter the program. Then they presented a video of their current program. They're going to be showing that video tonight after I'm done with my presentation. And then they requested that the people who took the tour describe what they saw. So they offered tours to the several people in the community before the meeting, and then they took them on those tours. What they saw was clean, maintained facilities, organized, well-staffed, and it was discreet. So they stated that they were impressed by the TPCP staff, programs, and facilities. Then next at the meeting, which took a lot of guts, was they had two current TPCP clients describe their experience while living at the short-term facility. So they went up there and described why they were there. And then they also described what they had learned and how well the program had worked for them. So some of the questions at the meeting were why this location. They stated, Turning Point stated that they have owned the property for years and they were looking for another location for the crisis facility. One of the other questions, are the clients locked in the facility? And they stated no, they do not have their rights taken away. So this is sort of a lower level. They don't, as they said, have all their rights taken away and their ability to freely move within the program. Will the clients be able to walk into the neighborhood? Yes. Staff stated they may go for a walk and staff may be in attendance. So the goal is to be a good neighbor. There has never been an issue with our current crisis centers. And the next question, was there a referral process? Yes, they do screen and perform in-person interviews. And in addition, the Turning Point wanted safety for their own staff. Again, staff is on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a minimum of 2 members at night. And they also stated that other similar crisis center surroundings have found that the 24-hour staff provides more eyes on the neighborhood. So in summary, the people in the audience, staff, city staff was also there, who took the crisis facility. They were impressed by the program, and the neighborhood meeting was informative and provided the audience clear understanding of the program and how it will be operated. It is exempt 15301 from CEQA as existing facilities. As I stated, they're changing the interior of the area. So staff recommends City Council on the project to be in compliance with CEQA and adopt the resolution approving the conditional use permit for a short-term mental health program located at 3440 Viking Drive, subject to the findings, project plans, and conditions of approval. And so the applicant is here, and they have a presentation in the video. And their names are Al Rolette. He is the CEO. And then the Turning Point program staff also on the line are Diana White, Stuart Marshall, Leslie Springer, Chris Davey, Karen Dulce, and Sacramento County staff might be attending as well.
June, can you repeat those names again just so we get them?
Yes, it's Al Rolette. He is the CEO. And then the Turning Point staff is Diana White, Stuart Marshall, Leslie Springer, Chris Davey, Karen Dulce, and also Sacramento County staff may be attending as well.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. And are there additional comments? Mr. Rolette, are you with us?
I am. I'm here. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and to share. Did staff want to show the video prior to me speaking, or would you like me to go ahead and speak first?
However you'd like to do it.
Okay. I'll provide a brief history and context. Turning Point Community Programs currently operates 4 crisis residential programs in the city of Sacramento. And I want to begin by thanking staff and thanking the community for giving us an opportunity to provide this presentation, and also coming out to visit 2 of our programs and getting a firsthand appreciation of the work that we like to do in the city of Rancho Cordova. We've had the unique privilege, thank you all very much, of being residents in the city of Rancho Cordova at 3440 Viking Drive for 25 years. As a chief executive officer, I've been associated with the organization for over 3 years. Our home office is right across from the city of Rancho Cordova on Gold City Drive. So we are very invested in the community. Sharing with me today will be Leslie Springer, who also can speak more succinctly to the unique treatment services that will be provided at Crisis Residential. I want to say in summary that all of our programs are located in the community, and we make every effort, and have done so successfully for well over 30 years, to be good citizens as we provide those services in the communities that we reside in. Without any further ado, I'll transition to Leslie.
Thank you. So again, thank you for having us this evening. The services, I'll just provide a brief overview, are really services for individuals who are in need of extra support, but don't need to be in a locked psychiatric hospital. So the goal is to really serve as a 24-hour treatment opportunity in the community. So part of the goal is to be a discrete treatment option and allow people to get well in the community versus in an institutionalized setting. So the things that we offer are treatment groups, so therapy, case management, really the day-to-day basics, the things that kind of fall off when we're not feeling well, getting people back on track with the routine. And so we have the discharge plan in process from the moment they arrive. So really that we're designed to be this short chapter in someone's life that has been very effective in helping people get back on track to jobs, to housing, all of those things. And I've been working with Turning Point for about 13 years, and I've been at the crisis residential programs. And so this is a very exciting opportunity for us to be able to serve more individuals in a great environment. So we're looking forward for this project.
Thank you all very much, and maybe at this time staff could show the video. And it's great to have this opportunity to chat with you via Zoom. It looks like everyone's being safe, and again, we at Turning Point Community Programs really are uniquely privileged and excited about being a member of the community. We had a great time with those citizens that came out and visited our program. And as staff suggested, we did offer to have residents come and talk with citizens who were present. And they spoke very eloquently about their experiences. And I think reassured staff and those citizens that were present of the nature of the services that were referred to by Leslie.
Okay, I think we have a video, staff. I'm not sure who's queuing that up.
We do have a video. It may sound a little wonky in-house, but it sounds great to those who are joining us virtually. We tested that today with members of this team, but we got a lot of audio stuff going on in the council chambers, just so you know. Just give us one moment.
At Turning Point, we know that a crisis can happen to anyone. I want to tell you about a resource that's available to support you when you're At Turning Point, we know that a crisis can happen to anyone. I want to tell you about a resource that's available to support you when you're
At Turning Point,
we know that a crisis can happen to anyone.
I want to tell you about
I want to tell you about a resource that's available to support you when you're struggling or experiencing stressful events and need additional support.
Orchard House, Clearview Corner, and Journey Home are all located here in Sacramento County. These homes provide short-term care, including psychiatric treatment, individual and group counseling, as well as other supportive services you may need. Stays at the homes typically last around 30 days, but can be shorter or longer based on your needs.
Most clients coming to crisis residential are in a crisis of some sort, needing support and stabilization, feeling their lowest that they've probably felt in a while, and not really having supports to help them. From the moment a client arrives at one of our goal is to help them feel supported and welcome and safe. We see clients at their worst.
One of the lowest points in my life, I was homeless, I was depressed, I was contemplating suicide. I was in a shelter, and I didn't know what was I just came in, it was people here, and they seemed happy.
The environment at crisis residential really is family-like for a lot of people. When you're here, they have peers that are going through the same type of thing that can offer support, just someone to talk to that understands the types of things that they're going through.
In 2015, I was experiencing physiological panic attacks. When I came out of the hospital, I needed someplace where I could get back on track. Being in a house neutral, being around
other people who are also doing that same work for themselves. It's not just a house over someone's head. While they're here, they're getting one-on-one support on a daily basis, 24/7.
Having someone there with you, having your appointment to guide your life, because this is your life at the end of the day. Just to have someone here, to have extra help, to support you, is just like amazing.
An incredibly kind, attentive staff. A lot of one-on-one attention. I think CRP services are very unique. They offer a safe, supportive environment that isn't restrictive of their personal rights, and also the freedom to be able to work on whatever it is that they need to work on to help them get back on their feet and back in the community.
They want to make sure that you are prepared, for when you leave. You can't stay here forever. Even though you want to. It's a great place. It's a great place for you to get what you need. I'm proud of myself for just making it this far.
My work is now part of my own mental health regimen. Contributing and helping to being of service. That's part of my mental health hygiene. It's been enormously rewarding.
We hope you will allow us to be a part of your recovery journey. At Turning Point, we believe that every one of us has a path to mental health. Let us help you find yours.
Okay, very good. That was a nice video. So at this point, council, do we have comments or questions? Mr. McGarvey.
That turned on here. Would you give me a little more information about Proposition 63 and how that was helping? Is that money from Proposition 63? How did that work into the Turning Point?
I'll answer that question if that's okay.
Do you need a repeat of the question?
Oh.
I think I understood the question.
Mr. Roulette, this is Donald Terry. Could you speak up a little bit?
Yes. This program is funded through Prop 63 dollars. Turning Point through Sacramento County through its Mental Health Services Act process, applied for, through a competitive process, a grant to fund this project. This project was funded by the California Healthcare Facilities Group, and that's not the correct acronym, but that's where the funding came from for the construction. The state, we applied through the county, with the county, for the state funding to do the renovations for the construction of the project. The services are paid for through the Mental Health Services Act, or Prop 63.
Okay, thank you on that one. And then one other, there are going to be 15 residents on this one. Are there about 15 in the other 4 facilities you have?
Yes, there are 2 with 15 and 1 with 12. The one on 34th Street has 12, and that's, again, been long-standing through that use permit process. The other 2 use permit processes we applied for and were successfully granted residence occupancy for 15.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Terry, any comments or questions?
My only comment would be, I used to live not far from there and was the school board member for that neighborhood, and I'm pretty familiar with the facility and kind of what was there. And I think a managed facility like this, comparatively to just an apartment building, would be a welcome addition, I think, into the neighborhood. David, I know when I was on the school board, we even had conversations about that corner right there at Viking and Lincoln Village, and I think that was one of the first places that we deployed one of those mobile cameras once I got on city council. So, I think it'll be just fine. I'm familiar with the organization and their management of other facilities in the region, and yeah, I don't really have a concern.
Linda?
Yeah, I understand. Normally we would be reluctant to approve something like this, but from my perspective, it's the organization behind it that's important. If I'm not mistaken, Turning Point has been around so long that they actually began in maybe the early 70s as the Aquarian effort. And at one point, right as we incorporated, a friend of mine actually worked for them for a while and participated in a cultural fair at Mills Junior High.
Linda, I think you're confusing well space and the effort.
Now, I don't.
Yeah, the Aquarian effort became the effort, then became well space health.
Okay, all right, you're right. It was the effort. You're right. Absolutely. Okay. So, but at any rate, this is again, it has to do with the organization behind it and the credibility that they have in the community. That's one factor. But then the other factor is the fact that they actually took the time, the neighbors actually took the time to not just attend the community meeting, but then to go and tour a couple of the other facilities and were impressed. And, obviously if their reaction had been different, we can all think of some other facilities that have been foisted on us by the state of California, and they're places that we would prefer not to have, and we didn't get a choice. In this particular case, where we get a choice, it seems to me that we are making an educated choice that is in keeping with not only the state of mental health treatment today, but also the attitude of the surrounding neighbors.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Garrett, do you have any comments?
The organization sounds good and promising. I'm a little concerned because, this is the first time I've heard of it when I read about it, and then the location next to where they're actually planning to go. I have some concerns about that. I would actually like the time to do a little bit more research. If I do, to be able to, because I'm not 100% certain that I got everything out of this report that shows what would answer my concerns. A lot when it comes to the police report, I'm not concerned so much about but the environment that we would be having these individuals in, and the safety of them and the group. And so, I'm concerned about that because that happens to be one of our more rougher, interesting areas, and I'd like to actually make sure that if we're going to put these very fragile individuals into this area, that it's a safe spot. And so, but anything that's going to be able to help someone with their mental abilities, I think, is an amazing organization. Obviously, it's God sent to be able to work with those kinds of people. But when it comes to our locations and our city, I don't know about this one being the best place for it.
Any comment from the applicant on that concern?
Yes, I'd like to respond. First, Turning Point administrative offices for 25 years were at that location. And so we are very familiar with some of the unique challenges associated with a community that's in transition, like the one in Lincoln Village. We already begun to work successfully with the I Love the Lincoln Village Neighborhood Association, and I think we have made tremendous inroads and would continue that positive work and engaging them in doing things in the community that I think would be very positive and affirming. Additionally, we worked when our home office was there, and there were a couple of unfortunate incidents that happened. Worked very closely with the police department in coordinating services, and in fact, had the police department say that it was very nice to have us there because we provided, if you will, additional support, eyes and ears regarding the neighborhood and advancing the positive qualities of the community. And Turning Point has a long history of being able to do that successfully. We've cited programs, one in Oak Park, been very successful. That's our longest standing program, and that's been open for as long as we've had our home office, over 20 years. Additionally, the two programs in the southern part of Sacramento County and in the Rio Linda area, there were similar concerns, and we worked very closely with law enforcement, had law enforcement come out to some of our town hall meetings that were hosted by the National Alliance for Mentally Ill, and provided the kind of support for the community around our ability to engage them in the practices that I think make us great neighbors. We do very well in engaging neighborhoods and getting them to advance the strengths of their neighborhood along with us, and then making sure that we help add to the resiliency of the community. So I want to assure Council Member Garrett that we would be able to not only be there successful, but are not naive about some of the unique transitions that are happening in the neighborhood.
Thank you for that comment. I'll add my own at this point. And Garrett kind of started with where I would be. So immediately next door to this facility, this proposed facility, is a liquor store that has been a challenge for some time for our city. I don't have recent crime data. Darcy, did you pull some crime statistics up or a heat map up for this particular neighborhood? But historically, as you are aware, if you've had offices in that neighborhood, has been quite a challenge for us. And it would give me pause to put a mental health facility immediately next door to a liquor store with some law enforcement challenges.
We weren't able to get all of the crime data in the heat map as requested for tonight's meeting. So if in the event you wanted that information, we could certainly bring it back to you for consideration at a later date.
Okay. So I know I'm in favor of this sort of treatment program. I think these sorts of treatment options for individuals are great, particularly for mental health and people who are able to get back out on their own. So I'm not opposed to that. I am opposed to a program that would have any kind of negative impact on the community in which it's situated. And unfortunately, in Rancho Cordova, we've seen that in other locations. Granted, that program, the program I'm referring to, is much larger, occupies many homes, but the neighborhood impact is severe because of people wandering in and out of the residences, people coming to the residence to interact with residents. It's a major impact on that part of town. In your case, it's only 15 individuals, so that would limit it. But they do have the ability to be in the neighborhood. So I would have a level of concern about a liquor store next door and a level of concern about whether or not your residents doing something in the neighborhood would somehow detract from that neighborhood. If you'd like to respond to that, go right ahead.
I'm going to ask Leslie Springer to speak to that because we have a facility in Rio Linda that is also, interestingly enough, in close proximity to a liquor store. So, Leslie, I think you're on mute. If you could speak to that.
Yes, thank you. We actually had a very similar circumstance with a liquor store directly across the street, sort of kitty corner to our program in Rio Linda, and we had to do some work with the managers of the liquor store to understand who we were, and they're trying to make a business while also we're trying to limit access to alcohol. And what we actually end up doing is having people walk with us, and we go also to the liquor store. So if it's really a Snickers bar that you wanted to get, then you won't mind us going with you. And so it's really about us being engaged with the neighbors, including the liquor store. So it has been okay with the liquor store, and I think really because we've been really purposefully involved there. So the concern about our clients going there, we were initially very concerned, but we were able to have staff accompany them when necessary.
Additionally, we'd have the very same approach with the liquor store and the liquor store owners. And because we provide 24/7 supervision, and that supervision includes having a psychiatrist and a nurse, and really an admission policy that people understand that you're there for treatment and it's short term. And so if you're there for treatment, transitions into the neighborhood may be accompanied by staff, and discharge from the program back to your domicile or residence begins immediately upon admission, so that people know that we are helping you plan the rest of your life so that you can continue the mental health treatment that you began at Crisis Res. I say that because we've been very successful in neighborhoods that are in transition and getting folks to understand the focus is treatment, and it eliminates much of, if not all, of a community disturbance or potential disturbance that our residents would have in the community. And then we've been very, very successful in working with law enforcement and the neighbors in the community to prevent any disturbance from the community onto our facility and site, because it's supervised 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The residents are never alone, and there's a very strict visitation policy. People don't just come and go, and so interest in the facility is monitored and coordinated. And it's all about, again, treatment.
So, David, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Okay. Like I said, I completely understand your perspective. And it is unfortunate that the past behavior of the liquor loft has so clouded what goes on in that particular little block. If you look at the rest of the block, there's a restaurant there that has a really good reputation in that neighborhood. And then on the corner with Explorer Drive, for quite some time there was a medical office building there. I mean, the building is still there. I'm not sure what's in it. And then the office building behind that, the long one on Explorer, where now it says Sacramento County Construction, that's been full of small offices, engineering firms, and people like that. Then across the street, we either approved an appropriate remodel of the Saratoga apartments or actually put some money into it. I'm not sure which. I've forgotten at this point. And then we have the old County Office of Ed building where I think there's still a school. So if you look at this as a continuation of trying to ensure that there are legitimate uses in that sort of 360-degree circle around Lincoln Village Drive, and to continue to help upgrade the way in which people behave and perceive that area, then that's a good thing that needs to happen for Lincoln Village. And that's a tall order. You're right. Leopards don't always change their spots, but it could be positive for the area.
I definitely see that potential.
David, can I?
Sure, Donald.
Thanks. So a couple of things. Thank you for reminding me that was your old offices. I forgot that. So I think a couple of things here to think about. One, I think the reputation of this operator comparatively to the one behind Safeway is markedly different in this case. And even how unhappy we were with that other provider, one of the issues that we ran into, and this is a question for the applicant, but I want to make another comment. But one of the big issues that we were having with another operator, similar to you, in who they were trying to help, what they were doing, it was not even scattered site. They just kept buying up houses on the same block right behind one of our grocery stores. And one of the issues that we've been having was they tend to have congregated meetings. They're doing 12-step meetings or AA or something like that at their facility. So they're actually having lots of people come onto the property. From what I just heard from you, it doesn't sound like that's going to be part of your programming. Could you speak to that?
Well, first, we are licensed. We have 2 licenses, one for the Department of Healthcare Services and the other from Community Care Licensing. That really does restrict that kind of activity. And so we are not going to have that kind of traffic at our site. The groups that are there are, as you saw in the video, certainly designed for self-help, therapeutic purposes. We have psychiatrists that are part of our staff. They work for us, and a nurse who works for us, and then 24-hour case managers and therapists that are part of the entire array of staffing that is managed by Sacramento County, the Department of Healthcare Services, and Community Care Licensing. So I want to assure you there's 3 layers of oversight. They actually also have visited the property and the facility and will ensure that the kind of oversight is provided as indicated in the video. The second, again, the same point is at our existing sites, we monitor and take great pride in the fact that currently at our 2 newest sites, there have been no incidents in which our residents have gone out into the community and provided a disturbance in the community. And in some of our community meetings, the residents at adjacent properties are actually ambassadors for us. And so I say that because we really do know how to integrate successfully in a neighborhood. And I'm repeating my earlier point, but having had our home office there for 25 years, if we didn't think that we could safely bring our staff to work, if Leslie Springer didn't think our staff could be at work safe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I want to assure you we wouldn't be proposing this project.
Yeah. And so, David, I mean, and I remember that hearing. I don't, maybe I was mayor, I can't remember, but I do remember when they went to expand and redesign some of the homes for the operator behind Safeway. There's a lot of reasons why we had concerns. This is night and day, and I don't think that we can let past performances of bad operators. It's kind of the same argument when people said, we can't build apartments in Rancho anymore because of how some builders build or manage their facilities. We have to recognize the differences between Turning Point and the other experiences that we've had. That's just a reality we have to live with. I mean, I think this will help people. It will employ people in our city. And I think they have a proven track record of not disturbing and, if anything, enhancing the neighborhood. I mean, their employees, when they're taking lunch breaks, could be, going over to Taco Bell or some of the places that are right around there, the new El Pollo Loco, right? So I don't see a problem here. I get the apprehension because of past experiences, but we have to acknowledge that this provider is a lot different than the other providers. And again, I would harken back to, you know, when we went and approved BDX, which has been an absolute phenomenal success for this city, right? And we were very afraid because of all of the past, you know, apartment complexes that had been built. But we had to, you know, come to grips with ourselves that AG Spanos is a different developer than a lot of developers we dealt with, just like I think these folks are.
If I may make one last point.
Sure.
We won't be buying any additional property or housing to move people into. Our goal is to assist people with discharge back to their domiciles, and those are domiciles throughout Sacramento County. One of the things that the citizens that were in Rancho Cordova said to us is having a service in our community that would help our citizens is wonderful, but you don't just target citizens in Rancho Cordova. We don't. We discharge people back to their domicile, where they live, their house, their home, their apartment. And we, in one of our projects, we made a point of emphasizing that we would be hiring people from the community to come and work in our project. And certainly we know this, that those kinds of opportunities, employment opportunities going forward are important for a community. And so we would like to think that we want to be part of that rebuilding project in the city of Rancho Cordova, and we think we could do that. We have a great track record of being good citizens.
Very good. Well, I appreciate all those comments, in particular the comments about having to operate your style of treatment center in close proximity to a liquor store. I mean, obviously, people suffering from mental illness often turn to alcohol as a therapy. That's an unfortunate thing that we see quite often. But if you have experience dealing with that and confidence in it, it's actually a positive, perhaps, because you could teach them how to manage with that attraction that they may have the rest of their life in dealing with, you know, alcohol and self-medication through that substance or others. So it could potentially even be a positive for you. Garrett, do you have additional concerns or questions you'd like to air at this point?
What's the worst thing that's happened at one of your facilities?
That's a tough question.
Leslie, you have a story about that?
I do. The worst thing that has happened is that a resident decided to go for a walk at night at 4 in the morning or so, and actually was successful at sneaking out. And he actually got shot a number of times and somehow made his way back to our front porch and collapsed. And it was pretty horrific. And it was a terrible example, but of our clients being more likely to be the victim of a crime than the perpetrator. So I'd say that was the worst thing that has happened. And, in terms of the neighborhood, it was very unfortunate, but that's my worst experience.
And the individual survived?
Yes, he did. It was remarkable, and we were really engaged with the family when he was hospitalized, and it was a whole ordeal. But he did survive.
Anything else, Scott?
The thing is, it's a great facility to have in our community. I'm just really concerned about the location. I wish I had the heat stats and stuff like that I could just look at it and feel confident that I'm putting people that, these are the people we need to protect and get back into community. So you guys aren't concerned Al, where's your office at right now? Where are you at now?
I'm across the street. I'm at Gold Center Drive. We've been here for a year.
Why'd you move away from Rancho, man? Listen, Al, I am unhappy with the fact that you're not in my city and you moved your dang corporate offices over to Gold River. Now you're done.
No.
He's in Rancho? Okay. You know what? You're okay. You're okay. I thought you said go over. I'm about to, right there. You almost lost it.
That was very close.
Right there. But,
So
you know.
let me just tell you, we were at Viking Drive for 25 years and would have still been there. And it was my choice, certainly, to stay there as long as we could. We had to leave because they want to do renovations there. That's the reason we had to leave. We had to leave because the renovations that will take place there wouldn't allow us to have an office there. And so we wanted to stay in the city of Rancho Cordova. So we are right across the street from the Rancho Cordova city offices. We're right across the street on Gold Drive.
Okay, so you've been there for 24 years. You know the stuff the challenges we have in that area. You know, Frank, you're not concerned at all with the groups that partake in that area? I mean, like, you know what I'm saying. Now, come on now. Like, I'm concerned. Go ahead.
We not only were there when they put the camera up, we were a part of working with the city of Rancho Cordova Police Department. We know what's happening with the Lincoln Village Neighborhood Association, and they're amazing citizens.
Yeah, they are.
They're amazing.
Without question.
And the things that they're trying to accomplish there, we want to be a part of that. And I am confident that this program can help advance that. So am I concerned? No. Also because we have an experience in another community that's been in transition for 25 years as part of Oak Park, and they would tell you that we are a stabilizing force in the community, and would fight the city of Sacramento if they tried to move us out.
Okay.
So Frank or June or Darcy, I have two questions. One, what happens to this use permit, conditional use permit, if the facility is sold? In other words, can they, get approval and sell, and a different operator comes in, does the same thing? Does the use permit pertain only to them, or is it transferable?
The use permit runs with the land.
So they could, as soon as they get this, they could sell to another operator, and we don't know exactly what would happen at that point.
Generally, yes.
With regard to the quality of the operator.
Yeah.
Okay.
The approvals would still obviously apply, but they are tied to the land.
That leads me to my second question, which is, if we have problems, what is the city's recourse? How do we revoke a conditional use permit? And should we consider some sort of condition of approval here that gives us an option to pull the plug if things go bad?
Yeah.
Whoever wants to handle that, feel free.
I mean, yeah, I'll start and then feel free to chime in. Generally speaking, the city has its code enforcement operations, obviously, as the council knows. So code enforcement's typically the one that deals with all code enforcement related, including planning and zoning law regulations in the city, which this would fall under. So it would first get triaged or go through the code enforcement process, and then any number of the remedies that the city has now could be applicable or would apply, such as administrative citations, notice and orders, and potentially revoking the permit if there isn't compliance.
Okay, and at that point, the conditions under which we would seek to revoke a use permit, let's say there's a lot of off-site activity. Drug buying, drug sales, loitering, littering, I don't know, some sort of stuff like that. Are those substantial enough grounds to pull a use permit?
I'd be curious if Darcy could probably chime in on the specific conditions here, because that's what it's going to be tied to.
Right.
The specific conditions and also the legibility of those conditions. In other words, are they specific and concrete enough that actually give the city the ability to enforce it? And that's where narrowly and tightly crafted conditions would come into effect.
And applicants, I would just ask, don't take these questions personally. This is now into a general phase of when we approve one of these, what sort of things should we be worried about? I'm not worried about your operation in particular. Go ahead, Darcy.
We currently, as I recall, I don't have the conditions in front of me, but I don't believe we have anything that is specific to ongoing safety concerns. I think the difficulty would be of how to, if we did see an increase in theft or crime in the area, is how to correlate that with the operation of this use. So I guess if the person committing the crime was a patient or a client resident of the facility, that's easily correlated. If they weren't, and we just saw an increase of thefts that maybe didn't have somebody in possession of drugs or anything like that, it would be hard to kind of correlate that balance. I'm
we
not
don't hold
sure.
them accountable for things just happening in the neighborhood. But that might, you may have just said what the answer is, and it's like a police connection.
Correct.
Right? If residents there were involved in criminal activity of some kind, or nuisance activity, then would we have recourse under the use permit as it's written to say no more use at this site?
I think there's a combination of our city codes that might give us that ability through the use permit. I think there's, under the revocation process, there might be some language there, potentially under the nuisance code, depending upon the nuisance that was being created. I would be more comfortable if there was a way that we could craft a condition to address the concern that if it's even legally possible to craft a condition, I would rather have that on there versus trying to down the road play a guessing game of which code we'd be looking at.
Okay. I personally would be comfortable moving forward with this if we had that sort of a condition in place. Something that set a reasonable bar of disorder in the neighborhood that was directly attributable to the operation of this facility.
So David. David.
Linda.
David? Yes, thank you. So, I don't have the conditions in front of me either, but it would seem logical that the conditions probably list the number of residents that are permitted on site, and it also lists the commitment there that there are the 2 staff people on site overnight, and some comments about having staff people accompany residents on their walks under certain conditions, those kinds of things. So it's not that you're creating a set of conditions where you could blame local outside discretions on them, but you would control the way in which the facility is operated to the extent possible.
Yeah, and I would say
it does take, their concurrence, assuming that 15 really is the max they feel they can handle, and it's not 20 or whatever.
Okay. Bob, did you also have a comment?
Yeah, actually, this reminds me of the Mather Community Campus. It's a transitional program. This is definitely transitional. You have 30 days, more or less, in this. And if there was a person who wouldn't follow the rules at the Mather Community Campus, they had to leave. They were told they had one more chance, but they had to go back downtown again to the 30 days, more or less, to see if they get back into condition like they're supposed to be, and then come back to Mather one more time. And then if they did it again, then like they're breaking drugs or something like that. But that's just one person. And I think looking at this facility, this Turning Point, the facility itself, from what I've heard and what I've read, it has everything it looks like going forward. And if you had a person in that facility that did something wrong, I don't think you should have to, or you would look at the whole facility as bad because of one person in it that had to leave. And so right now I'm looking forward to approving this tonight. So as I said, though, I'm comparing the two, and both of them are transitional. Both of them, one of them's longer than the other, of course. But this, I think, is something that would be it would be negative. It would be wrong to say that the whole thing is bad if one person goes bad. So.
Well, I'm definitely not saying that. I am saying that the city should be in a position to protect ourselves against a future operator, because I'm not concerned about this operator or this use in this location, but because we can't control who a future operator might be, regardless of, what their intentions are about being here forever or that sort of thing. Anytime we hand out a use permit, we should be sure that we are protecting ourselves against this use in the hands of a future operator that may not be as responsible as this particular operator is. So that's what I'm worried about, is that unknown. Do we have a reasonable way to protect ourselves in that circumstance? And staff is having a lot of conversations here on the side.
Well, this is June Cowles. I just wanted to point out condition 1. The condition 1 states the project is described in the city council staff report, and that's the description of their project. And also condition number 7, the residential care facility short-term mental health program shall have staff on site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then we also included condition 10, the applicant shall install security cameras to monitor the parking lot area that is on the western side of the property, and that's the parking area that's hidden from the street view. So we tried to get to some specific conditions.
So June, if there was a significant offsite impact due to residents of the facility, which one of these conditions would we point to and say you're in violation of a use permit condition? Because I'm struggling with that question.
Well, I think that's one that we'd have to get with legal to ask that question of how we correlate that and if it can be done legally.
I think one of the other things that we have to understand is that the conditions of approval also include generally require there's omnibus conditions that require approval with the general laws of the city, including all code enforcement, which there's a litany of potential code enforcement related violations that could apply to an operator that maintains a nuisance, for example, and that could be broadly described as various types of activities on or around the premises. So those get grafted in or incorporated in by reference into the conditions of approval, I believe, right, Darcy? So as a matter of either suspending or revoking or taking potentially an adverse administrative action to revoke a conditional use permit, the city would have the ability to tether its existing laws to the permit to actually revoke the permit. So in other words, it wouldn't be simply the city right now wouldn't be limited just a code enforcement process that has no connection to the use permit itself. Those two things would be tied together. So if that helps.
So you're saying under our general code, city ordinances, we would have the ability for any use permit, basically, in Rancho Cordova to say, we're pulling that use permit because of this nuisance or whatever that might be, given appropriate legal measures and steps, et cetera.
Exactly. There's generally, like I said, omnibus sections that incorporate the general laws of the city as a way of making sure that just because you escape this pound of flesh over here with this list, you still have to comply and be a good citizen in the city as well.
Okay.
And those are tied to the use permit.
I think this is probably, council, the second time in nearly 20 years that we've taken on an issue like this. So this is a relatively unique discussion, at least for me.
So
all right, I think that satisfies my concern then from legal. Are there any other comments or questions from staff or council?
Are you a member of the chamber? Al,
Yes.
are you a member of the chamber?
No, I was raising my hand. I was going to answer the question regarding the property and its ownership.
All right, if you'd like to comment on that, go ahead.
Yeah.
Turning Point owns the property, and so consequently, the property would not be sold to another operator provider. If for some reason we discontinue providing service there, service would end. We own that property, and we are working with the county and the state and have a specific county lien on the property associated with us providing services there. So by agreement with the county, you have every assurance at this particular property, because Turning Point owns it, that this is the only service that can be provided there, and it can only be provided by Turning Point Community Program.
Very good.
So no one else can come in and operate that program.
Very good. That's good to know.
David, would it be time for a motion? I'd be happy to make one.
Yep,
and
I
move
think
this
we are
after,
to that point unless someone else has a comment. Okay, I'm going to.
So I'll make that motion.
I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve item 11.2. Roll call, please.
Councilmember McGarvey?
Aye.
Councilmember Terry?
Aye.
Councilmember Budge?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gatewood?
Hey, Al. Are you a member of the chamber?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Sander?
I'm sure there was a non-conditioned vote. Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much for bringing us this. I look forward to a positive impact on Rancho Cordova and that neighborhood.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you. We look forward to meeting everyone. Please stay healthy during this COVID-19.
Thank you, too.
Yes, you too.
All right, that brings us on to item number 12.1. If the clerk would announce that subject.
Transportation expenditure plan for the proposed 2020 transportation half-cent sales tax ballot measure.
By the way, we're now on to regular calendar items. Let's see, do we have a staff report?
Yes, we do.
Albert, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor Sander and council members. Albert Stricker with the Public Works Department. And Will Kempton has done an excellent job of facilitating a regional conversation on the proposed transportation expenditure plan for the proposed Measure A. Will is the executive director of the Sacramento Transportation Authority, and I'm going to invite Will to come up to the podium, and he has a presentation for council's consideration.
All right, Mr. Kempton, welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Will Kempton, Executive Director of the Sacramento Transportation Authority. Before I begin my presentation, I did want to take a moment to thank the City of Rancho Cordova, particularly the City Manager and the Public Works Director, for hosting the professional advisory group that meets regularly relative to issues related to the existing measure, the new measure, and the Transportation Authority. Every couple of weeks, we're in one of your community rooms, and my wife provides the cookies, but the City of Rancho Cordova has provided us with liquid refreshment, all on the up and up, and water, tea, coffee. That's
excellent. I've walked by many times and seen you in there. Felt like I should join you, but deferred.
It was very much appreciated. As your staff report indicates, you are being asked tonight to approve the transportation expenditure plan tentatively adopted by the Sacramento Transportation Authority Board on March 18th. You are not being asked to approve a tax initiative. Consideration of approval of the implementing ordinance and placement. Do these need to be closer?
I'm just making sure this is on.
Okay. Consideration of approval of the implementing ordinance and placement of a sales tax measure on the ballot will come later through action of the authority and the Board of Supervisors. So I wanted to make sure we get that out. Now,
so this action is not placing a tax measure. This action is talking about an expenditure plan for a proposed tax measure.
Correct. Simply
just to reiterate your point.
Simply approving the expenditure plan. I'll get into the process a little bit more. That. Thank you so much. Building the plan, this has taken some time. It's been well over a year and a half. We've conducted more than a year of outreach efforts. We've met with well over 150 organizations and individuals. We did conduct a pretty extensive public opinion survey of 1,500 Sacramentans in October of the past year. As I mentioned, we've held regular meetings with the professional advisory group, which includes public works directors and other senior staff from the county's 8 cities. and local and regional agencies. We've held detailed meetings with an ad hoc committee of the STA board on which Councilmember Gatewood now sits. And we've actually conducted 5 public STA board meetings. The expenditure plan was introduced in December of 2019, and we had 4 additional meetings of our board prior to the adoption to take public input. The process is that the Public Utilities Code of the State of California requires support of a majority of the city councils representing a majority of the county's incorporated population and the Board of Supervisors before you can move the expenditure plan forward. The STA's Board of Directors has voted to present this expenditure plan for approval to the local jurisdictions in Sacramento County. I have been to 5 cities and to the Board of Supervisors, and we've received approval from all of those jurisdictions. After the consideration by the local jurisdictions, the STA Board of Directors must adopt an implementing ordinance by a 2/3 vote. That is currently scheduled to take place on May 14th. The Sacramento County Board of Supervisors, by majority vote, then would presumably place Measure A on the ballot, and the measure must be approved by a 2/3 vote of the county electorate. This is kind of an overview of the Sacramento County Measure A Transportation Sales Tax Expenditure Plan. There are 10 categories of work included in the plan. There's a lot of detail. It is approximately $8.4 billion over 40 years. Of those 10 categories, some of the most significant are local streets and roads, SAC-RT maintenance operations, certainly congestion relief, senior disabled transportation services, air quality, transportation management agencies, the American River Parkway is in there, rail operations, and of course the always present administrative costs, which are limited to 1% of the total receipts in this document. Now, we asked our consultants to give us an estimated benefit to all of the cities in the county and in the county itself. There are some direct allocations for the local streets and roads portion of the program and for local projects of regional significance, but there are other benefits that accrue to the cities and the county relative to the programs that are included in the program. So our consultant did a rough estimate of what those benefits would be to each of the jurisdictions, and for the city of Rancho Cordova, over the 40 years of the program, it's estimated that there would be in excess of $600 million worth of benefits to the city of Rancho Cordova. Local projects and programs. This is the piece of the streets and roads portion of the expenditure plan. These are the projects that will be eligible for the city of Rancho Cordova to spend dollars on. This was determined by working with your staff and input from elected officials as well with respect to where you would like to see these dollars expended. I'm going to go back here for just a minute. There is also another chart that was provided to you, but we didn't have time to get it into the PowerPoint presentation, and that is the local projects of regional significance for the city of Rancho Cordova. Some $700 million was set aside in the expenditure plan for projects that are very important to the local jurisdictions. And in Rancho Cordova, that's the Cordova Parkway US 50 interchange, the White Rock Road Complete Streets project, and the widening of Douglas Road. Those are projects on which your share of that $700 million can be spent. Again, we are very mindful of the disruption and uncertainty that has been caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. And there's no question there's been a toll on individual families, the economy, and our quality of life, and that impact has been unprecedented. However, our effort began with the goal of planning for the future of Sacramento County, and we do believe we should continue with that effort, not necessarily in spite of, but because of the current situation and the opportunity that we have potentially, at least early on in the program, to provide some economic stimulus for the economy that's been so troubled lately. While at some point it may be necessary to set aside this effort, and we will be conducting further survey research this summer to determine public outlook, We know that large-scale infrastructure programs can have a very positive impact on the economy. So over the next few months, we're going to be working with transportation stakeholders in Sacramento County to propose a package of improvements that can be implemented immediately if voters approve this measure. And we would combine the impacts of the current measure, or the abilities of the current measure to move project work forward, as well as new project work that would come with the new Measure A. So in addition to the other longer-term benefits of the program that we've discussed tonight, your approval of the expenditure plan this evening could contribute to retaining an option for helping to get the county's economy moving again once we have defeated this virus. So with that, we request your support for the resolution to approve the transportation expenditure plan for the proposed 2020 transportation sales tax ballot measure. I've also provided, and I think you have it in your packet, a summary of the benefits of the program, as well as a more detailed summary of the proposed expenditure plan. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, very good. Council, questions? Mr. McGarvey.
I have one.
Oh, Donald, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just had, well, and I think you kind of hinted at it. The final step to this and putting it on the ballot would be the County Board of Supervisors voting for this. And they could choose not, you could approve the expenditure plan and they could choose to not put it on this ballot, but put it on 2022. That is an option as part of this, correct?
We are, Mr. Terry, we are looking at that. I can't answer your question specifically as to whether or not it could be put on a later ballot, but yes, the County Board of Supervisors would be the final stop for placing the measure on the ballot.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be really interested if and when you know that, just to understand kind of timing-wise for, you know, again, if the polling isn't telling you that this is a fruitful venture, you know, and maybe waiting till greener pastures, it makes more sense. You know, I would hope that there would be the flexibility to do that, considering the amount of work that's already been done.
I understand.
Thank you.
Linda, do you have any comments?
She's almost on the meeting. Hold on.
There we go.
There she is.
Okay, for Will specifically, you presented two different lists, and so I have a couple questions on the first list, which was the generic spending plan. Whatever is the Regional Transit Center?
Regional Mobility Center?
The Regional Mobility Center is a center, a technology center that is focused on two things, essentially. One is to develop high-tech transportation industries within the Sacramento County area so that there's a benefit to the economy, but also to help train a workforce and work with the production of equipment that will allow those new kinds of businesses to go into effect.
So it's
kind of like creating a 21st century Siemens.
Well, you could look at it that way. I don't know that it would be nearly as large as Siemens, but it does involve the private sector, SMUD, Sac State. Many of the larger companies in the area are going to be working with this agency to try to move a new industry relative to high-tech mobility forward in the county.
It's a targeted project of the Greater Sacramento Economic Development.
Greater Sacramento Economic Council.
Economic Council, right. And there is a model for this in Germany, and frankly, the operators of that model in Germany are interested in the Sacramento region as a second site. Site's been identified. SMUD's a major partner. UC Davis is a big partner. Sac State is involved. This is funding to sort of pay for the underlining, the infrastructure, I think, of that facility. It has potential to be play a key role in development of future manufacturing processes, but also to test out new technologies. So basically, you can think of it like a big lab about transportation and also manufacturing around transportation devices. I think that's a fair enough summary from what I know of it.
Well, that sounds very creative, and I'm sure if this goes to the ballot, we'd all like to know more about that one. How is the American River Parkway anticipated to use this money?
As you may know, the American River Parkway currently receives $1 million a year from the existing sales tax program. This would ensure that funding continues, but also would double the money for where the two programs overlap. The money would be used for the same activities that the existing measure is currently funding, including the maintenance and rehabilitation of the parkway. But there's also a desire to focus some money on programs that will ensure the safety of the parkway. There's been a lot of problems at certain locations along the parkway where homeless camps and things of that nature have created some consternation, and there are other issues of safety that have impacted use of the parkway facility, and these funds could be used for that purpose as well, to help facilitate improvements along those lines.
So trying to bring the parkway back to being a viable transportation corridor?
That's true. That's ultimately the intent, because right now there are segments where there's concern about through traffic, through bicycle traffic going through, and this would be a way of trying to accommodate that and get better transportation use out of the parkway.
The homeless encampments are crazy.
Okay, and then when you talk about the category under landmarks, is that like the capital corridors, or is it like rail, or what?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
It's the rail item.
Oh, the rail operations? That includes it is like the Capital Corridor, but money also goes for the San Joaquin services that run out of Sacramento. We do have language built into the program that this would fund only activities and station improvements in Sacramento County that would facilitate access to the Bay Area using the Alameda Commuter Express service.
Got it. Okay. So then on the second list, David, I suspect my questions are more for Albert. So I'll wait till Albert's available to answer questions.
Okay, I'll make a note of that. Let's see, Garrett, you want to ask questions? Based on this presentation, basically.
No, I know everything about this thing.
You know?
I've been constant negotiations. Really quick, Daryl Steinberg put a piece of language into it last minute. I just received an email from you, so we're still concerned that the stuff he put in could be challenged by a lawyer, but we did have a professional look at it, correct? Is that basically what you got out of it?
Well, we've been getting a lot of questions about this particular language, as you know very well, Councilmember Gatewood. What we did was our consultant referred this to a land use and environmental attorney, the Thomas Law Group, and many of you may know Tina Thomas. She responded with a review and analysis of the language that was added, and her conclusion essentially is that this new language does not add new obligations to the consideration and adoption of a project. Because of the environmental process, these obligations already exist, and they're simply restated in the Transportation Expenditure Plan and the ordinance. And so that's a brief summary of her conclusion after reviewing at the request of our consultants.
Basically, guys, what happened was Daryl Steinberg came in last minute and put some language in that makes it impossible for us to ever finish our connector on the edge of Elk Grove and Rancho Cordova. So, and we'd have to go through something like getting it into SACOG's MTP, but then there's another group besides SACOG that we'd have to get approval from to be able even to build into that area. And so that happened like last meeting, when it had already been approved by two groups of cities, and then we actually saw that. And so that's one of those gotchas, last minute change outs in the middle of the thing that we have to deal with. So,
So this is like a goalpost moving?
yeah, it just shifted
situation
on
where
us. It
keeps
just got
changing?
kicked, and I was like, what happened? And that's why our vote to even introduce it, come back to us, is now up to 5 no's and not like full support across the city council. Hi, Daryl. Hi, Michelle. I see you guys in there. Should be right there. Look, it's full attendees. Yeah, so I actually have some questions for Albert, because I want to verify it before I do it. So Albert, come on up.
We'll bring Albert up next, actually.
Okay, go ahead.
One question.
Mayor, while Mr. Stricker is coming up, I would like to respond to Councilmember Gatewood.
I was going to give you that chance.
Oh, thank you. I think it is accurate that this came up at the latter stages of the process prior to the adoption of both the expenditure plan and the introduction of the ordinance. They're two separate actions there. But I do not agree that this means the project cannot go forward, given what we know is left to do with respect to the environmental process associated with the 14-mile stretch between Douglas and Bradshaw. The project is not going to have to undergo that kind of review in any event. That's been confirmed by Ms. Thomas in her letter, and the reason I would like to share a copy of the letter with you, we just got it this evening. My first obligation was to get copies to the board so that they could look at it. So I think that there definitely is, there are opportunities for this project to move forward, but obviously compliance with the greenhouse gas emission targets as part of the MTP, which was unanimously approved by the members of SACOG in November of this year, is a requirement.
So there's standards for every project in the region to get into the MTP. There's analysis that every project goes under to get into the MTP. Is there anything special about the connector or any other project in this expenditure plan that would take it outside of that? Like any extra approvals or anything, or is it just got to meet with the qualifications of the MTP?
It's compliance with the MTP. That's the language that's in the Transportation Expenditure Plan.
What's the other group? There's the MTP.
The Sustainable Community Strategy.
There's another group that basically is controlled by more politicking than it is by like the MTP, which would make sense. So that has whoever votes on it, and the only people that get on that are people down in downtown Sacramento.
I don't know what that group is.
See.
So the route for that segment then, if that was our primary concern, would be get yourself included in one of the MTPs that come out every 5 years.
That's correct, and that's a very good point, Mr. Mayor.
Then you're fundable.
It's a very good point, because this plan is a 40-year plan, we, because of the length of time, we have built in 10-year reviews for the plan to make sure that it's moving forward in a direction that makes sense. We don't know what's going to happen 20, 25, 30 years from now, so there's a rigorous process for any changes that have to be made, but at least there is an opportunity for that review. With respect to the MTP, that's a 20-year document, as you well know, constrained by available funding. It's updated every 4 years. Circumstances do change. Traffic circulation, land use patterns, and things do change. New technology comes into play. Different mileage.
New greenhouse gases goals.
Yeah. So those things will be looked at on an ongoing basis, but at a more frequent time frame than this plan.
And for projects trying to fund themselves through Measure A outside of the MTP, is there a newly identified process or something I've heard?
I'm not familiar with what is being referenced there. I don't.
Okay.
I don't know. I will say there's $300 million. We fought hard to make sure that $300 million in this plan stayed in the plan and committed to the connector project.
Okay, so the most recent language basically says you got to be in the MTP or we can't fund it.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, that's not true. It actually
that is true.
It stays. No. It stays with the city, though, right? Like the money would go to the actual connector, but then the money stays with the city, right?
If the project could not, through mitigation measures or otherwise, be placed in the MTP, the dollars would remain with the local jurisdictions for application to another project which would qualify.
So in this case, whatever is assigned to that 14-mile segment, portion is Rancho Cordova, portion is, majority is Sacramento County. Those dollars would then be available to us to redirect to another MTP project.
If we could not accomplish mitigation or somehow otherwise meet the requirements of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
Okay. I have a question, a big picture question actually, about total funding. Because I remember Measure B, was that 2016?
It was.
And had about 3.3, was it 3.4 billion, 3.3 billion, something in there?
It was considerably less based on the projections at the time. Plus, it was only 30
years. Now we're at 40 years and 8.4 billion. I've kept myself, this is hard for me, from doing the math. I probably won't be able to do that before I fall asleep tonight. I'll have to do it. But my goodness, that's a huge difference just for 10 years. There must have been other changes in assumptions or something.
Well, I can't speak to the 2016 plan. I wasn't here then, but our plan.
You had another job at the time.
Yes, I did. Our plan is based on pretty conservative estimates going forward. However, that being said, as you know, the existing Measure A started in a trough by virtue of the Great Recession that occurred. That had an impact on the amount of dollars that were available for that program. And with the COVID-19 pandemic, we could be looking at starting in a similar trough with respect to the impact on the economy. That's why we think it's so important to emphasize doing something to get some projects out on the street as quickly as possible so that we can make a contribution from our perspective to helping the economy rebound.
So the process, I'll just describe it as messy, for lack of anything else that you go through. I've seen a couple of these sort of regional, efforts and how messy they were, going back to, 2002 to year 2000. But your experience goes back, I don't want to offend you, but goes back further than mine in these matters. How would you describe this? Because, from my perspective, seeing things like, oh, we're going to apply a new rule to every single project, or maybe it's just trying to single out one. I'm not quite sure what the intent was there. That seems really messy to me.
Well, things that come up late in the game are tough to deal with. But again, with respect to what we've been talking about, that is consistent with the existing requirements. I've been involved in some very messy local sales tax programs. Some of them have been very smooth in terms of moving forward. So it goes across the board. I think that from what I'm told, compared to the 2016 effort, which was really kind of a rough process, particularly at the tail end of that project in terms of approving the expenditure plan associated with Measure B, that this process has gone remarkably well in terms of engagement, bringing people to the table. Not that there haven't been issues and strong points of view on different sides of the transportation spectrum, but I think we've offered a great deal of opportunity for public input, and I feel pretty good about this process so far.
Okay, and last question I've got for you, and you may not be able to answer this one, I'm not sure, is, this transit share question seems to have dominated a lot of the discussion about this Measure A proposal from STA. And I know that historically it has certainly been a very big deal, what that share is. I think Measure B was like a 70-30 kind of a split. This one's looking more like a 60-40. I don't know if I'm off on those numbers at all.
You're accurate.
And so that's an increased commitment by the region to transit going forward, which, we are talking about a 40-year horizon here. But if you look at, the industry of transit right now and what's happened over the past decade, it's a pretty remarkable transition, from what we thought transit was going to be to what now we think it's going to be. Big buses, are pretty passé, except for very localized areas. New light rail may not be that likely in the future. More personalized transportation that's electrically powered, that may be the future of transit, you know, and shared vehicle operations. So the idea of upping the contribution to transit at an exact time when we're really in turmoil about what the future of it even is. I mean, it might be, as West Sacramento has done, almost completely privatized. How exactly do you feel about that going forward? I mean, obviously, you're the agency head, you want to be supportive of what your board's working on here, but boy, it seems like we're placing a big bet at a time of remarkable risk.
I have no problem answering that question. First of all, one of the highest priority items in the polling, in addition to fixing local streets and roads, was traffic congestion relief. And one of the ways that we're going to be investing in our transportation system through this program is by improving transit operations, not only the existing operations that are there, but looking at new types of service. For example, the Smart Ride Microtransit program that's been tested in Citrus Heights, and I think even here in Rancho Cordova to some degree, and in Folsom. That program is funded in this particular effort. The other piece of this that I mentioned earlier is that the fact that we are talking about 40 years and having these 10-year options to take a look at the situation and see how we might want to redirect investment in some of those activities, assuming we go through this rigorous process for approval and those changes get made. That's exactly why we built that in. Frankly, it's already in the current measure as well. We're going through our first decennial review of the existing measure. So that's intended to respond to some of the things that you're talking about. And I would say one other thing, and I feel this is a really good point. In 2016, our transit operation here in the Sacramento region was in trouble for a variety of different reasons, and it had nothing to do with the people involved. They were dedicated, committed people. However, we have seen a turnaround in our transit operations over the last couple of years. Henry Lee, the general manager, has brought a new approach to doing business, and I think that there's a lot more confidence among elected officials, and certainly I hope you share in that confidence, that we're going to see a better return on investment. We have a tremendous opportunity with the dollars that we put into transit to leverage outside money, primarily from the federal government, to support transit operations. So,
okay. We're going to give you an opportunity to answer questions or make comments later, but I think at this point, Albert, Garrett, you requested Albert. Linda, did you also have a question for Albert?
Linda's first. Yes, I do.
Okay. And Donald, just speak up if you want to be recognized. I don't have any kind of video monitor here of if you want to talk or not. Okay, Linda, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Albert, on the second list that Will presented, I have a couple of questions. When it lists the Zinfandel pedestrian crossing, is that the continuance of the project that's currently there, or is it the separate crossing between Prospect Park and Olson Drive?
That could be considered as a phase to the current construction project.
Okay, so it's the copy of the thing over at Watt Avenue.
Correct.
Okay. And it listed expenditures on the parkway. The parkway doesn't belong to us, and the parkway advocates won't let us touch it. And what are we supposed to do with money that's designated for the American River Parkway?
That's listed on each agency's expenditure list, and the details, it would be certainly a collaboration between county parks and each of the agencies. But the details of that haven't been worked out at this time.
Okay, so
I would expect that there would...
Go ahead.
I would expect that there would be an opportunity for the city of Rancho Cordova to identify important projects within the corridor, within the city of Rancho Cordova's jurisdiction, and partner for promotion of those projects.
Oh, you mean like the bridge from Hagen Park to Ansel Hoffman Golf Course?
That could certainly be an opportunity for conversation.
That would be an opportunity for conversation. David's smiling. You know, it
The
dawns
Zoom
on
thing
me,
may not always be good.
it dawns on me to wonder why. What's the deal with money for different projects coming straight off the top as opposed to, and so it kind of has to do with why is the Parkway listed on everybody's list of local projects, but this thing called the Regional Mobility Center isn't, and I think it's one of those things that was money off the top, which I didn't get. I didn't understand that.
And for the details of evolution of that, I'd ask Mr. Kempton if he could provide additional information on how that evolved.
Okay.
First of all, Councilmember Budge, with respect to some of the projects that you asked Albert about, those projects are a list of eligible projects. The city has the choice as to whether or not you want to spend money, some of your direct allocation on those projects. You're not required to. You can negotiate with other jurisdictions to see how that proceeds. And with respect to the off-the-top programs, those are programs that essentially have application to there's no formula for distribution. They're application to the entire program. So that's why they come off the top. The American River Parkway is listed there for direct funding. You can add, if you choose, if the city of Rancho Cordova chooses to add additional money out of your transformative system improvements category of work that we discussed earlier.
I'm sorry, what was transformative systems improvement?
Yes, so you were looking at the more detailed summary in terms of projects. The local streets and roads category, which is a major category of funding, is broken down into essentially 3 different subpots. Local street and road repair directly, and cities can determine if, and the county can determine if you want to put all of that money into local street and road repair, you can. You're required in the first 5 years, if you haven't met a certain level of pavement condition, you are required to spend 90% of those dollars on road rehabilitation and repair, and the remaining 35 years you must spend at least 50% of the money until you would achieve a state of good repair on the pavement. The second component is these transformative system improvements, which really constitute those kinds of projects that you were referencing earlier in your questions to Albert. They're the projects that are eligible for funding if the city chooses to apply those, and they're listed in detail on I think we had them in the presentation. If you'll bear with me just a minute. Yes, the local projects and programs, Fix It First, Construct 50 at Rancho Cordova Parkway Interchange, Widen White Rock, Widen Douglas Road. Those are some of the same projects you put in your projects of regional significance. It just means that you have the opportunity to spend more of your dollars on those projects if you choose.
Okay, and I should probably know this, but I don't. Is this a 40-year sunset?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you, Will.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Albert.
All right, Gary, questions for Albert?
Albert, come on up. What's our split out of the $600 million we're about to give in? Is it 70-30, 60-40? For every dollar we give them, how much do we take to spend on our projects?
It's estimated, based upon the $8.4 billion total program, it's estimated that City of Rancho Cordova's direct contribution to that would be on the order of greater than $600 million. The City of Rancho Cordova is expected to receive back directly based on the two programs that Mr. Kempton mentioned, approximately $230 million. Certainly another perspective of looking at that is indirect benefits back to the city of Rancho Cordova, which Mr. Kempton also presented.
So is that 40 cents or is that 30%?
It comes out to about 30%.
So we get about really close to 30, somewhere in the 20.
About a third.
About a third, okay.
That's direct, right? Direct?
No, that's total. That's total with the other projects, the
But
connector
indirects.
and the other things that are kind of connected. Right?
Those are.
Can I ask a clarifying question? What David just asked?
Sure, Donald.
Here, Albert, and it was just explained that there's the direct, David, specifically to your question.
Yep.
There's the direct allocation that we're getting plus indirect benefits of other regional projects that our citizens would utilize.
Correct.
So the direct is 33.
Thank you.
The direct is very roughly a third. It really depends on how you calculate it and many assumptions, but it's very roughly a third. If you look at the entire list that Mr. Kempton provided with all of the indirect benefits to City of Rancho Cordova, including improvements to transit and freeways and et cetera, as he presented in his slide, it's roughly 1-to-1, including the indirect.
So 50-50? Is that what you're saying?
Roughly, the contribution from City of Rancho Cordova is greater than 600 million, and the benefits, total direct and indirect benefits step back to the City of Rancho Cordova, as presented by Will, is also greater than 600 million.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Albert? Nope. All right. Okay, we have received a lot of public comment by email. Have you do anything in addition to what's in front of us here?
No.
Okay.
So the city received comments from 7 individuals on this particular item that has been shared with you, and those public comments were shared with council. They've also been printed and are available in the back of the room for the public. The following 6 individuals shared in opposition of this item, and I'm going to read their names. James Ricketts. Second is Pam Herger. Third is Mary France Driscoll. Fourth is Diane Leverich. Fifth is Feldon Leverich. And 6th is Bruce Lee. I have one who submitted a public comment in favor of this item, and that is Jofil Borja. Close enough?
Okay, thank you for that. Unfortunately, we don't know where all those folks were from. We usually ask. And let's see. In one case, we know Mr. Lee represents the Sacramento Taxpayers Association. Otherwise, we don't know if they're residents or not. Well, one is not a resident based on the address.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And then one was a gentleman with a zip code of 95833, and one the Sacramento Taxpayers Association.
Right. Okay, council, how do you wish to discuss this further? Any opinions?
I mean, my opinion is it's all about timing and let's see how we say this correctly. I can't vote for it. I wanted to see more money go to our city, and I feel like it's not good timing and doesn't look good to put this on the measure as it is right now. And I know everyone wants to vote for it because everyone else voted for it, but I just don't feel like that's a good enough reason to put a tax measure on at our city.
All right, well put. Bob?
I don't think that it would pass, actually. I think that's maybe in a couple of years after the coronavirus and all the rest of this goes, maybe if the world doesn't have a Great Depression again, maybe it would be something that would be interesting to to look into. But I think right now, I don't think it would have a snowball's chance on getting passed. So,
Will, there's actually a question in that. As you're moving forward, this does not have to be on a ballot this fall in 2020. As I understand it, it could be 2022. Is that correct?
I can't answer that, Mr. Mayor, whether or not by going through this process, the expenditure plan that is approved and moved forward to the Board of Supervisors could be put on a subsequent ballot. I just don't know the answer to that.
You'd probably re-up the plan and work on it more and
I would expect
adjust the numbers and
be an expectation of that.
Sure.
And but if the timing is not right, again, as I mentioned earlier, there's going to be some subsequent surveys done. There may be a decision made not to go forward. But at this point, our board feels that we have an opportunity here to implement a stimulus program associated with this effort, and with those kinds of investments, we can maybe contribute to an earlier recovery of the economy, not to mention the overall benefits of the plan itself.
So your board will have to take this up again, this expenditure plan, make a recommendation to the County Board of Supervisors. They do the final action.
That's correct. They will have to adopt at the ordinance, which has only been introduced to this point, and then refer it to the Board of Supervisors for consideration of placement on the ballot.
And you'll need to test questions like, I think early polling had road rehab as, was that the number one goal or something like that?
The number one goal was actually doing what we say we're going to do. And that's what these programs are all about. That's the beauty of these local self-help programs, and I have been involved with many of them over my career. And so I think that was the highest item scored. Road rehab, of course, was way up there. The congestion relief scored highly. Safe routes to school, senior and disabled transit services, correct? Those all scored very high.
So yeah, the ones that were in the 80s were seniors, safe routes for kids, and do what we say. And then it came road rehab, and then underneath that was like really low rails.
So testing things like use of funds for road rehab, I think, is your current plan about 20%, something in that neighborhood?
Well, it depends. That's the choice of the city. There's 20% or so of the money which would be required to go there. However, a city could spend all of the dollars that you receive in that local streets and roads category on road rehab if you chose.
It would be more.
It would be more. It would be, double the 20.
Okay. All right. Bob, was that? I didn't mean to cut off your comments there.
No, that was pretty much it. Well, if we could get that passed, and if we get the money, and if, then I think it would be great. But I don't think it has, like I said, I don't think it's going to pass. Don't we have to have? Isn't there just a majority of the cities in the county to get it go anyway? To go to the county?
It has to have 2/3 vote to pass at the polls. I think it has to get a 2/3 vote at your board. It has to get 2/3 endorsement in this process, but they've got everybody but us. So it's foregone conclusion. Whatever we do doesn't actually matter.
Majority of the cities representing a majority of the incorporated population and the Board of Supervisors.
So whether we vote yes or no is going to go to the supervisors anyway. So.
Yeah,
it's going to come back to the STA board. And right now, they're one vote away from voting it down. And then right now, if they vote it yes, then it would then go to the county supervisors, where they would have to make the final decision to really say, is this a good idea to put this on the ballot as we see it right now?
Right. Donald, do you have any comments at this point?
No, I guess my feeling on this is, I'm not in love with the split. I'd like to see more for roads and I think suburban transportation, and there are a lot of unknowns, David, like you said, when it comes to mass transit and people's willingness before and after this crisis. But I also don't want to, vote against, what would be critical funding to our city for major projects that, we're all relying on to be built at some point to improve our community and to move people around our city and throughout our region. So, I'm not a fan of this final language, but I'm sure as heck wouldn't vote against, allowing voters to have an opportunity to decide whether or not they want to continue to invest in infrastructure on a whole bunch of projects that we all find very, very important to us. So I'm a yes, and there are those times where, the sausage has been made and we have to decide if we're going to eat dinner or not, but I'm not turning away dinner. Not that I couldn't miss some meals and be just fine, but,
Wow.
Where are we going with this conversation at this point? This is rough.
Sausage making is an appropriate analogy, though.
A little bit of chopped up.
I'm trying, hey, man, laws and sausage, the two things none of us ever want to see get made. But we're here, and now the question is, would we actually turn down something like this? This could be an economic stimulus coming out of a recession, or whatever this is. So, I do think that there's going to need to be a lot of talk about this and some good polling to decide whether or not this is realistic. But to vote it down because it's not politically viable, I don't think is really up to us. Ultimately, the County Board of Supervisors should be looking at that poll and deciding whether or not it's viable and if it's worth spending the money and the effort. All we need to do today is decide if we're going to vote for it and allow the next steps to go forward. And at some point, somebody's going to have to address the political viability of what has been put together. If it's not politically viable, don't put it on the ballot. But that's not our decision, and that's not what's in front of us. So I'm not using that as a goalpost at all. I'm looking at it. This is hundreds of millions of dollars that we could use on critical infrastructure in our city, and I'm not voting no.
All right, well put. Linda.
Well, I'm very much of a mixed mind about this because I agree with Bob. I think the chances of this thing passing at this point are slim and none. And what bothers me about that is the fact that when you look at the effect of what's going on right now on our sales tax generation, and we know our Community Enhancement Fund is going to take a hit because people can't spend money or not willing to spend money or been laid off and can't spend money. The existing Measure A is going to take a hit because it's sales tax funded. And yet we're contemplating spending a lot of money to put this thing on the ballot. And I've always said we should not be afraid to ask voters what they think. But in this particular case, it seems like we probably know what they think. And so this is, for me, this is a complete waste of what are going to be scarce resources by the time we get to November. But on the other hand, I cannot sit here in good conscience as a member of the RT board and a second-year baby boomer who's not getting any younger and being completely committed to public transportation because, quite frankly, I'm seeing it in my own household as people become less and less able to walk around on their own, and they still need to get from place to place. Not everybody can afford Uber or wants to take a taxi, and public transportation is really the only option. And just like the inadequacy of our medical facilities to deal with baby boomers, our transportation system is completely inadequate to deal with baby boomers. And so, as Donald says, if this potentially could generate a significant amount of money to accomplish any of those goals, then I'm not going to vote against it. I would like to vote against it, but I'm not going to do that.
David, can I make one comment or just a comment on what Linda, you just said?
Yes.
I think one important thing here when it comes to the political viability question and whether or not we spend any resources on this, I'm not voting to spend a dime on an educational campaign until I see polling that says this is viable. So, really, the only question before us right now is, do we support the idea of funding these infrastructure projects? If we do, then you vote yes. Whether or not we decide to support an educational campaign or try to raise funds and to do all of those political things, that's a whole different question that at some point STA and the groups that are a part of this are going to have to answer that for us, or we're not going to spend a dime. Or at least that's my opinion. I wouldn't vote to campaign.
And legally, we can't actually spend any sort of advocacy dollar, as a city. We're barred from doing that. There are interest groups, however, that would, and we can spend under certain circumstances educational dollars that just sort of tell our population what the measure is about, but it can't be advocacy.
Right.
I know you know that.
And then the other thing we're also dealing with is that it is a sales tax. So that means that raising this is going to affect every citizen we have.
Right.
Because we are going to increase everything from milk to bread to gas to electrics on everybody in the middle of a pandemic.
All right, so my 2 cents is, we are in a horrible crisis. And I'm not talking about COVID-19, I'm not talking about the virus, I'm talking about transportation funding crisis. And it's probably the greatest eye-opener I had getting elected to the city council when we became a city, was how short public institutions are, local governments are, in meeting our obligations and needs to maintain public infrastructure. Basically, rough numbers, the gas tax that a lot of people think should fully fund transportation in California funds about 1/6, 1 out of 6 parts of what we need to maintain our system. With the existing Measure A, we get about another 1/6. So now we're up to about 1/3 of what we need to efficiently maintain what we have. So we're 2/3 short with those 2 sources of what we need. Now, we occasionally get some federal money, we get some state money. We have, in Rancho Cordova, Measure H, which gives us an additional pot of money to go to, but still, we're short. SB 1 may have given us something approaching another 1/6, probably not quite a 1/6 of our overall need. And so we are not nearly as bad off as many of the surrounding jurisdictions, but we're still not functioning efficiently on transportation because we can never get our roads and bridges and bike trails and sidewalks up to the peak and most optimum efficiency level of maintenance. So we don't have enough money available to us to repair it to a point that we can maintain it efficiently. We're constantly behind the 8 ball. We're always spending money to patch, and we do it as efficiently as we can. And again, Rancho Cordova is not in the worst shape compared to the jurisdictions of the region. We're actually in pretty good shape, in part because of our fiscal conservatism here. We do a great job maintaining what we have with the resources we have, but the problem is much, much bigger than us. And so the comments tonight about you can't turn down money for transportation, I think is largely true. I mean, barring some enormous problem with the funding source in local government in California, you'd be crazy not to seek another source of transportation funding, because if there's a cost to not doing that, every time we are unable to keep a road at that optimum level of maintenance, it costs us more to fix it later on. So we're constantly trying to literally dig ourselves out of a hole, a pothole in this particular case. And so we're in this horrible crisis. We didn't get ourselves into it, but in a way we did as a society. We built so much infrastructure we can't afford to maintain it all. We don't have mechanisms in place to help us maintain it all, particularly in the past. I think we're doing a better job more recently. And into that mix comes, a decision like this. And I agree, I think this is a horrible time for this measure. I can't imagine it passing. I think the polling that came up originally showed, it barely viable. I don't know if there's been anything better since. I think that where the measure currently is with regard to what the poll indicated is pretty far apart. I think the process was really messy. Will, I really appreciate your comments on that. Maybe it wasn't that messy compared to others, but in my experience, that moving the goalpost thing and, I don't know, swapping out board members at the last minute and calling in state agencies to weigh in on a local thing, that just seems nuts to me, by the way. I don't like that. I am not very comfortable with that. But again, we're in the middle of this horrible crisis. I don't think this is a good time to raise taxes on residents. So I am really torn. This, to me, looks pretty much at this point in 2020 as kind of a lose-lose proposition, regardless of which way we go here. But that overall importance of getting transportation funding is still there. We have to find solutions to that. If we can't do it regionally, we're going to have to do it locally. Because to do otherwise is not to be fiscally conservative. It's not to be a good steward of the funds we give. It's not to represent our residents well. Because we keep wasting money trying to fix problems that have gotten too big because we don't have money in the up front to deal with it. We keep sort of kicking the can because we don't have enough resources to ever get that can. We need the resources to get the can. Do I think this is going to do it? Probably not. It's still probably not enough because of the scope of the problem. But that's sort of the big picture, and forgive me for going on here, but that's sort of the big picture of the crisis that we're in. And so with that, I am probably going to have to hold my nose and be in support of this particular expenditure plan tonight. But the odds, I think, of this thing passing or of me voting to put, resources behind an educational campaign are not good. And I probably line up with Donald Terry's, depending on what the polling shows and what the campaign folks think about the chance of this thing passing. And I would hope, I actually really doubt it ends up on the ballot this year. I would hope that in a future iteration, there might be more consideration for local concerns and a little less spent on the regional off the top stuff. That's my 2 cents. Any other comments on this measure? All right, I think we're done with public comment at this point. Will, anything else you want to add? He's good. Council, any last comments? Otherwise, I'm open to a motion.
I'll move the item.
Motion made. Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. We will do a roll call.
Councilmember McGarvey.
Yes.
Councilmember Budge.
Yes.
Literally holding the nose.
Councilmember Terry.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gatewood.
No.
Mayor Sander.
Aye. Okay.
Will, you have quite a story.
There you go, Will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council.
That's the end of your road trip on this item until the next go around, I suppose.
I still have Ileton.
Oh, okay. Well, good luck with that. I thought we were the absolute last jurisdiction. Okay. Council, let's see, where are we? We are down to item 13, future agenda items. Any future agenda items by council members? Hearing none.
No.
Oops. Yes? No? No. Okay, with that, I'm about to adjourn unless anyone's got anything else. Okay, we are going to adjourn tonight. We are going to adjourn tonight in memory of Dan Skoglund, who passed away on this date 3 years ago. So we want to remember Dan tonight with our adjournment. Thank you all very much. We're adjourned.
Thank you.